Hello and welcome guys. Make yourselves comfortable and enjoy. This is Affinity, Chaos, Chapter 351. Hey, find a place to hide once the struggle starts. Gray whispered to Reynolds. Reynolds nodded. He knew his strength all too well. Getting involved in the struggle would undoubtedly distract Gray. Gray nodded when he saw how quickly Reynolds agreed to his suggestion. All three groups waited at the forest, none stepping a foot into the barren land. But it didn't take long before greed pushed someone to take the first step. A man from one of the other groups dashed into the barren land, attacking the magical beast in front of him. With one person charging forward, the others started jumping in as well. They couldn't take the risk of watching on. What if the guy manages to succeed and acquire the lightning tree? Then what? Gray stood at the edge of the forest, watching people charge into the barren land. Reynolds and the couple were standing beside him. Most of the people from their group had also charged forward. The couple stayed for a minute before joining in as well. They weren't the only ones who couldn't hold back anymore. Even the triplet and the leader of the expedition joined in as well. There were different types of magical beasts at the hill, but they all had the same element, the lightning element. Hey, bud, should I hide now? Reynolds asked. Not yet, things just started. Do you think these are the only beasts here? Gray replied softly. Okay, Reynolds answered. What do you think about the couple? Gray asked curiously. Them, well, they're good people. I don't really know much about them, but they've been good to us throughout the journey, answered Reynolds. Okay, but are you willing to share the tree with them? Gray asked. Reynolds fell into thoughts for a few seconds. I can't say for now. I'll know what to do after acquiring it. Okay, Gray nodded. Gray and Reynolds stood at the end of the forest, watching the people who were fighting. Gray suddenly sensed someone walking towards him. He tilted his head to the right, only to see the young man from the inn walking in his direction. So, what's your decision? The young man asked after getting within 10 meters of them. I'm not interested. Gray replied in a straightforward manner. Working together would make things easier. Don't you think? The young man asked again. I prefer working alone. Gray turned his attention to the people who were fighting against the beasts. Within the short time of 3 minutes, over 20 beasts had been killed. A few people had died as well due to the numbers of the beasts, but they were all those in the mid-stages of the origin plane. The young man squinted his eyes, looking at Gray. Why did you come to me? Gray asked when he sensed the young man's gaze. There's something different about you. You ooze a sense of confidence even with so many people challenging for the treasure. The young man said. If I remember correctly, you were the one who found this place, right? Gray asked. Well, not exactly. I overheard some mercenaries speaking about it in the forest, so I questioned them. They are among the people who came with me today. The young man explained. But you decided to spread the information instead of keeping it. Why? Gray asked, darting a glance in his direction. Okay, the truth is. The young man paused and looked around, trying to make sure no one was close to them. He gave Reynolds a look. He's with me, Gray said. I don't want the tree. What I want is below the tree, the young man said. Gray raised a brow in suspicion. Below the tree. Yes, that's all I can tell you. You can keep the tree. But there's something below it that I want. Without eliminating these beasts, or at least most of them, there's no way to obtain it. The young man said. How precious is it? Gray asked. More than the lightning tree, the young man said. How are you so sure I wouldn't steal it? Gray asked with a playful laugh. Because I'm the only one who can use it. The young man stretched out his hand, and red lightning danced around it. Oh, I see. Gray exclaimed softly, giving the young man another glance. No wonder he needed these people to kill the beasts here, Gray thought in enlightenment. Although he wasn't too sure of the young man's plan, he could already get the catch of it. He had read about red lightning in an ancient book at the academy. It was among the strongest types of lightning, but unfortunately, it came with a major drawback. It needed something like a sacrifice. It's strengthened by a mixture of blood and lightning. If a lightning elementalist who possesses the red lightning wants to strengthen it, they would need to go to a place that is filled with lightning essence, and this essence must be mixed with blood. It's somewhat of a gruesome thing to do, but there are few people who possess this rare red lightning, and there are fewer places filled with lightning essence in the Azure continent. What about the lightning tree? Gray asked. It'll be fine, the young man replied. All I need is for you to take the orb you'll see after pulling out the lightning tree, he continued. And what happens if you were to reach it before I do? Gray asked. He doesn't see anything that's beneficial in this. If he were to pull out the lightning tree, he would naturally take whatever he sees below it. The probability isn't too high. The people I sent there are to ensure that no one reaches there before I do. But I can't be too certain if they can stop others, the young man said. That doesn't answer my question, Gray said. Fine, what do you want? The young man asked. Something to show your sincerity, Gray said. Fine, take this. The young man threw a necklace at him. The pendant had a faint bluish glow. Just looking at that already shows you it's very valuable. If I get to the tree first, you can keep that. But if you do, you can keep it as well. This is like a payment for my services. Gray cut him short while pretending to hide the necklace in his shirt. You fine, but make sure you get it, the young man said. Of course. Gray smiled. Reynolds looked at the face of Gray and noticed there was a notable change in his expression. Ray, I'll be making a move first, Gray said, taking the first step into the barren land. As soon as his foot made contact with the ground, he shot straight to one of the magical beasts close to him. The beast was a small lightning fox. Its size and speed made it extremely difficult to handle, but for Gray, it was easy to deal with. Bam! Gray kicked the fox, which was moving swiftly through the air. Bang! The fox slammed into the ground, bleeding from all parts of its body. It shook a few times before it stopped moving altogether. After killing the first beast, Gray charged at another beast, killing it with one clean strike again. All the beasts he was killing were those with low stages. I hope this works, Gray thought as he slaughtered his way closer to the hill. The pendant the young man gave to him contained something he read about. It was something that helped with improving consciousness. When he first sensed it, he couldn't believe his eyes. It was only after holding it did he realize it was real. When the young man came close to him, he had sensed it the first time, but the feeling was very faint. It was only after a few times did he confirm it. He didn't even think this was the first thing the young man would offer him when he asked for payment. But, looks like my luck is getting better, Gray thought, while dishing out another strike. He wanted to kill as many beasts as he possibly could. The young man had already paid him anyway, and he would also collect the lightning tree for Reynolds, so it was a win-win all around. Reynolds watched as Gray went from beast to beast, killing anyone he encountered. He looked at the young man who was smiling by the side. Let's hope you're not playing tricks on him, or else you wouldn't like the side he shows you. After speaking, Reynolds slowly retreated from the area. The young man looked at him but kept his mouth shut. He still had the same smile he previously had. Gray and the others were fighting against the beasts, killing multiple beasts as they tried to get closer to the hill. Unknown to most of them, the blood of the dead beasts was sinking into the ground, running straight to the hilltop. Chapter 352. Bam! A silver panther slammed into the ground at the foot of the hill. Gray slowly walked closer to it. Just as he was stretching his hand to extract the core, he noticed someone jumping to the front of the panther, carving a hole on its head, removing the core. He looked at the silhouette properly, only to realize it was the lightning elementalist from the triplet. The lightning elementalist gave him a look of contempt, before moving away with the beast core. This panther was a late-stage origin plane magical beast, so its core was valuable. Gray shook his head before he started climbing the hill. The hill was only around 100 meters high or so, but the beasts that were on the way were all in the late stages of the origin plane. The higher they went, the stronger the beasts. There are even some that are at the peak of the origin plane. If those beasts were to stay in this place for 3 to 4 more months, then they'd be able to break through to the Overlord plane, becoming rank 5 magical beasts. Others had already started climbing the hill before Gray started. He saw the couple were already within 50 meters away from the hilltop. The darkness elementalist amongst the triplet was around 20 meters away from the hilltop, and the leader of the expedition was just below him by a few meters. The number of beasts made the advancing difficult, since most of the beasts from the 30 meters mark were at the peak of the origin plane, and they weren't few. Gray could easily get to where the lightning tree is located and retrieve it, but he was waiting a little longer because of his deal with the young man. He wanted to ask the young man where he got the liquid that was in the pendant. There isn't a guarantee that the one in the pendant will be enough to heal Void, so if he could get a location of where more is, then he could head there personally to retrieve it. As time went on, more and more magical beasts were killed as the people kept advancing. Magical beasts weren't the only ones who were dying. People from the three groups were dying as they stayed there longer. It couldn't be helped, the beasts were just too much. Gray managed to get within the 30 meters mark, encountering his first opponent at the peak of the origin plane. It was a lightning bull. It stood almost 2.5 meters tall, and its horns were black with silvery lines around it. The bull instantly charged at Gray when he confronted it. Gray sidestepped to the right, dodging the bull, while using the earth element to raise a small 3 inches wall beneath the feet of the bull. The bull was easily tripped by the wall, slamming into the ground. Gray didn't bother with it. He continued advancing forward. A few people were already within 10 meters of the hilltop, and the darkness elementalist amongst the triplet was already on the hilltop, fighting against 2 beasts at the peak of the origin plane. Due to the small distance between those still climbing the hill, their attacks sometimes hit others, causing and adding friction among the people. Gray focused on dodging the beasts that headed his way, moving quickly to the hilltop. It didn't take long before he got there. The top of the hill was around 20 meters wide, with the place where the lightning tree was located being at the center. The top of the hill was congested by so many beasts that moving forward seemed almost impossible. While Gray was planning to make a move, he suddenly saw a red light flash by the side of his eyes. The red light quickly made its way through the beasts. Before any of them could react, the light had already gotten to where the lightning tree was located. Gray smirked. He knew this red light was none other than the young man. Now he understood why the young man wanted so many people here. Without them fighting with the beasts, there's no way he would go through without being stopped, even with such amazing speed. For the first time in Gray's life, he saw someone that was almost as fast as he is if he went full throttle. The young man stretched out his hand trying to take the lightning tree. Hair! Gray scoffed before taking a single step. After his foot touched the ground, he disappeared from his position. But that was not all. His position was now occupied by the young man who still had his hand outstretched, while Gray was standing next to the lightning tree. Gray grabbed the lightning tree, and the tree sent out lightning towards him. But he easily used the lightning element to deflect it, before removing the tree from the ground. After uprooting the tree, a red orb appeared in the hole. He could still see blood flowing towards it. What if I try to refine it? What would happen? He thought to himself. He quickly picked up the orb. Just as he was about to turn around, he noticed something below the red orb. It was red just like the first orb, but was darker. Compared to the first one, it was well hidden, and he couldn't even sense it. Huh, 2 orbs. He had a questioning look on his face, but he collected the orb nonetheless. The young man who caught mid-air was left stunned. He raised his head only to see a magical beast charging towards his direction. He hurriedly looked around and saw Gray standing in the position he was previously standing. How? He muttered to himself. Everything happened quickly, so he didn't see Gray collecting the first orb. He only saw him bending down. Gray turned to look at him with a smile. Other than the young man, no one else knew what happened because their views were impeded by the beasts. Roar! The magical beast closest to the spot where the lightning tree was previously located roared in anger. This was the strongest beast among the beasts here. Its aura was already close to that of an overlord plane magical beast. Crap! Gray cursed out when he saw the magical beast charging towards him. Chapter 353. Gray hurriedly looked around, and the darkness elementalist amongst the triplet caught his eye. Without wasting time, he took a step forward and disappeared. In his position stood the darkness elementalist who was defending against an attack. The darkness elementalist was shocked when he realized that the magical beast before him was gone. Just as he was about to process what was going on, the claws of the leopard that was coated with lightning struck his back, ripping off some of the flesh on his back. Bang! The strike sent him flying, landing in the midst of some of the magical beasts at the bottom of the hill. Gray, who was standing in the position where the darkness elementalist was helped by the blue vest which activated its defensive properties. When Gray was unable to defend the attack sent him flying. Bam! He slammed into the body of another magical beast, pushing the beast backward. The body of the beast was the perfect cushion for him, helping him get his balance. After standing properly, he looked in the direction of the leopard, and was surprised when he couldn't find the darkness elementalist. The leopard stared at him with its angry eyes, scaring him a little. He quickly wrapped the lightning tree with a cloth, before keeping it in his loose shirt. Of course, that was just to deceive others. He truly kept it in his storage ring. This technique is beyond heavenly, Gray thought in excitement. The technique he used to switch places with the young man, as well as the darkness elementalist, was a technique that was part of the Great Void technique. After gaining a bit of mastery, he realized he couldn't just move to a designated area, but he could also switch places with anything that was there. This was a skill that would be greatly beneficial to him, only the consumption is higher when switching places. As things stand, he could use it 5 more times, and after that, he would be exhausted. Even fighting with his other elements would be difficult by then. The leopard charged towards him, making him turn around fleeing. This was a unique skill he had honed in the trial land, and he was very confident in his fleeing abilities. On the cliff, roar! The roar of the leopard caught the attention of all the people who were still trying to climb to the top of the hill. What's that? The lightning elementalist amongst the triplet asked. Someone must have gotten the lightning tree. The leader of the expedition said. He was already close to the hilltop. It must be brother, the fire elementalist said confidently. I can't say for sure. He isn't the only one who has gotten to the top of the hill. The kid who came with us is there as well. Then I recalled seeing a red flash. If my guess is correct, then it's a human as well. The leader of the expedition said. HMPH. That brat is lucky to be alive till now. If he dares to steal the lightning tree from brother, then death surely is. The fire elementalist paused, looking at the figure that was flying towards the bottom of the hill. Brother! The fire and lightning elementalist exclaimed simultaneously, darting straight to the bottom of the hill where the darkness elementalist crashed. Going down from a hill which was just around 100 meters high was a breeze for the duo. A single jump was all they needed. After getting to the ground, they were shocked by the sorry state of their brother. His back was bleeding profusely, and blood was running from the side of his mouth. They didn't have time to ponder about what happened. They focused on fighting off the beasts that were running towards their brother. The darkness elementalist tried to stand up, but he was unable to. The fire and lightning elementalist was still fighting against the beasts when they heard an annoying voice. So that's where you were, and I was searching for you all over, Gray said while charging towards the triplet with the leopard in tow. He planned on using the strength of the leopard to deal with the triplet. He initially thought the darkness elementalist escaped, but he never thought he was actually thrown off the hill by the leopard with a single strike. You little piece of shit. What do you mean by that? The fire elementalist immediately scolded when he saw Gray, but his expression changed when he noticed what Gray was bringing towards them. He could see a wicked grin in Gray's expression, so it wasn't hard to guess he must have had a hand in what happened to their brother. While Gray was running towards them, the lightning elementalist hastily picked up his brother. Retreat, he said to the fire elementalist. Count yourself lucky, brat, the fire elementalist said before turning around. They knew they were no match for the leopard that was chasing after Gray. If their brother was fine, then they had a chance. But with him being injured, they couldn't take the risk. Gray grinned wildly, and with a step he vanished, appearing in front of the fire elementalist, where the lightning and darkness elementalist were previously standing. Bang! He punched the face of the fire elementalist, sending him flying. The lightning elementalist who was trying to escape was shocked to see his brother in front of him. He recalled the fire elementalist was previously behind him. His pupils dilated when he saw his brother being sent flying by the kid who was behind them. Gray directed the punch he threw at the fire elementalist so well, making sure he was sent flying in the direction of the lightning elementalist. Now the lightning elementalist was caught in a dilemma. Either he tries to save his brother or moves to the side to save himself. Saving the fire elementalist means putting both him, the darkness elementalist, and the fire elementalist in the range of attack of the leopard. But saving himself means he would be able to protect his life as well as the darkness elementalist's life at the cost of the fire elementalist. Chapter 354. The lightning elementalist pondered on which choice to take, and in the end, he valued his life more. He hastily moved to the side to the delight of Gray. Roar! Smack! The leopard smacked the fire elementalist with its paw, injuring him with his claws in the process. Surprisingly, the fire elementalist was unexpectedly sent flying in Gray's direction once again. The lightning elementalist watched in dismay as his brother was thrown towards the kid he previously thought wasn't even worth paying any attention to. Gray smiled when he saw the fire elementalist coming his way. He positioned himself in a fighting stance, drawing his right arm back, enforcing with every element he had in his arsenal. Bam! Boom! Gray punched the chest of the fire elementalist as he got close, with the blue flames in his hand exploding, causing further damage to the fire elementalist. While punching him, he made sure to punch him in the direction of the leopard once again. The lightning elementalist almost lost his mind when he saw his brother going in the direction of the leopard again. This time, since he was not standing in front of the leopard, he decided to help his brother, but at the cost of hurting him. He couldn't personally catch him since he was already carrying the darkness elementalist, so he threw a lightning orb that exploded, pushing his brother to the other direction. He tried to make the impact as light as possible, but with the fire elementalist already hurt by not just the leopard's first attack, but Gray's brutal punch, it hurt a lot. The leopard continued chasing after Gray. It wasn't bothered with the lightning elementalist since he was out of its way. "The kid has it," the lightning elementalist muttered. He hurried over to where his brother was lying, and his appearance was far worse compared to the darkness elementalist. He could sense he was still alive, but barely. Gray's punch was terrifyingly brutal, causing a crevice in the fire elementalist's chest. The fire elementalist was barely bleeding because the heat from Gray's flame when it exploded burnt all the injuries, while causing more damage as well. "The kid has the lightning tree," the lightning elementalist yelled while pointing at Gray, who was running away from the leopard. He fed both his brothers the healing tonic he had with him. When the others heard his words, they looked at the direction he was pointing at, and sure enough, Gray was running away from the leopard. When they sensed the aura of the leopard, they immediately concluded what the lightning elementalist said was right. The leopard was the strongest magical beast in this place, and for it to chase after a single person only meant the person took the treasure. The leader of the expedition looked at Gray in shock, likewise the couple. They never expected that Gray would be the one who would obtain the lightning tree. What was even more shocking was the fact that he was running away from a magical beast that even they weren't sure they would be able to escape from. Such talent, he must be from a powerful family. The leader of the expedition said, "To be honest, although I heard him saying he was confident in being able to obtain it, I didn't believe him." The man couple said. The lady nodded as well. They only regarded him as a talented youngster, nothing else. They even felt he was arrogant when he made the statement. "What do we do now?" The lady looked at her husband. Most of the people here were already chasing after Gray as well, but surprisingly, those from the guild didn't join in on the chase. This most likely has to do with the rules the leader said at the start of the expedition. Whoever obtains the lightning tree owns it. Unfortunately, this rule did not apply to the people from the other two camps. Even those from the young man's camp were chasing after Gray. "Let's settle our little conflict with those three." The man smiled while pointing at the triplet. "Lucca," the leader of the expedition called out to the man. "The expedition is over, we're just settling some scores," Lucca said with a serious expression. "It's not like they haven't tried to kill us on several occasions," the lady said to the leader of the expedition. The leader of the expedition looked at the couple, then at the triplet before sighing. He couldn't really dare to stop them. It's not that he couldn't, but he didn't want to. He had witnessed the triplet trying to kill the couple a few times, but Lucca always comes up with a way to escape with his wife. The truth was, the triplet was the reason Lucca hadn't been able to break through to the Overlord plane yet. The couple jumped down from the hill, heading for the triplet. Presently, most of the beasts here have started retreating into the forest. The lightning tree was no longer in the place, so the lightning essence in the area was already starting to diminish. The people who were still alive were all currently hunting for Gray, except for those who came with the guild. It hadn't been up to 2 minutes since Gray uprooted the lightning tree. With the beasts retreating and the people changing their attentions to Gray, the lightning elementalist decided to take the opportunity to escape with his brothers within the chaos. The darkness elementalist is currently able to walk on his own, but the fire elementalist was out cold, so the lightning elementalist carried him on his shoulders. Just as they were about to leave the area, Lucca and his wife appeared in front of them. "My friends, what's the rush?" Lucca chuckled mischievously. "Lucca, what's the meaning of this?" the lightning elementalist said with a long face. He could already guess why the couple were blocking their path, but since the expedition was still on, he tried to put up a strong front. "Nothing, you see, the weather is nice today. So my husband and I decided it's a good time to settle our dispute." The lady squinted her eyes as they approached the triplet. Don't forget we're still on an expedition. The guild will not let you go if you break the rules. The darkness elementalist snorted coldly. Don't worry. The expedition is over. Lucca laughed before attacking. Chapter 355. Gray was currently running away, with the leopard not too far from him. The aura of the leopard made running easier. All the magical beasts retreat whenever they get close. It's been a while I've been chased like this, Gray thought as he ran. Of course, he could easily escape. If he uses the space element, he would be able to give the leopard a considerable distance. With the leopard's intelligence, it naturally knew when to give up. But Reynolds was still in the forest, and he couldn't leave without him. They're following after me. Gray looked behind him. He could sense people coming in his direction. Time to ditch this stupid cat on them. He snickered inside before changing his direction. While running, he broke a tree branch that was exactly the same size as the lightning tree. As he ran, he steadily pumped the lightning element into the tree. With his high elemental grade and mastery in arrays, he managed to create an array around the branch that was about to suck in the lightning element into the tree branch. Before long, the tree looked identical to the lightning tree he uprooted. Its aura was even almost identical. Gray placed it in his storage ring, next to the original lightning tree. The array drew a little of its aura, making it difficult for even him to differentiate them. Luckily he knew which was which when he placed it in the storage ring. After making a replica of the lightning tree, he ran in the direction of the people, after using the leopard to run a cycle around a small hill. It didn't long before people appeared in sight. The young man was among the people who were going after him. I'm not willing to die because of this stupid thing. Do you guys want it so much? Here. Gray threw the branch that was wrapped with a cloth to the people. Seeing the branch that was covered with a cloth heading towards them, the first thought that came to their mind was that it was fake. It was when the cloth accidentally blew away from the branch. While it was still mid-air, did they start to believe it might be real. The young man was the first to charge forward. With his superior speed, he could grab the branch before others. The leopard chased after the branch as well. Compared to the others, he sensed the essence in the branch even before the cloth blew away. Roar! It roared, trying to intimidate the young man, as well as the others from collecting the branch. The young man paid deaf ears to its warning, grabbing the branch and running in another direction. The leopard and the people chased after him. Some of the people were already at the end of their life. Although they looked young, they barely had over 5 years left remaining in their lifespan, while others couldn't advance anymore. A treasure like the lightning tree was what they needed to help them break through to the Overlord plane. Gray looked from the side as they all ran after the young man. Well, that's that. He dusts his hands before casually walking back to the forest. On his way, he suddenly saw a flash of lightning dashing past him. Behind that flash of lightning was another one. Looking closer, the first flash was the lightning elementalist from the triplet, while the one at the back was Lucca. Oh, they attacked. How wonderful, Gray said in delight before taking out the communication device, as well as the disc. After looking at it, he went in the direction Reynolds was hiding while speaking to him. 10 minutes later, "Hey bud," Gray said in front of an old tree. "You don't look like someone who has been running away from a magical beast at the peak of the origin plane," Reynolds said after jumping down from the tree. "You see, after doing something for a long time, you become a pro at it. I could run for hours, and you wouldn't know," Gray said nonchalantly. "Come on, let's leave. My trick should have already expired by now." He started walking, following the direction they used in coming here. "Thanks, bud," Reynolds said as he caught up. "We're already past that, Ray," Gray said while looking at the map. Fine, let's go. Next time, I hope I'm the one who gets to help you," Reynolds said. "Sure," Gray replied. After confirming they were going in the right direction, they continued walking while speaking. Gray told him of how he was able to harm the darkness and the fire elementalist. He didn't know what happened after leaving, but seeing Lucca chasing after the lightning elementalist probably meant the couple had dealt with the other two. It took them about 30 minutes or so before they got to the exit of the forest. Given the fact that most of the people were running after the lightning tree, Gray guessed they would be the first people to exit the forest. On leaving the forest, Gray was surprised to see Lucca sitting at the place where the guild camped. "You're Gray, right?" Lucca stood up, walking in their direction. "Yes," Gray nodded calmly. He didn't feel scared or worried about the appearance of Lucca. I never thought you'd be the one who would obtain it, Lucca said. I do. Gray smiled. Where's that guy you were chasing? He asked when he didn't see any signs of the lightning elementalist. He managed to escape, but without his brothers, he isn't much of a problem, Lucca replied. Oh, how unfortunate. Gray shook his head softly. So, what now? He asked, looking at Lucca. You should leave before the others come. If they find you here, they wouldn't be so welcoming. They might have let you leave the first time, but I'm not sure they'd let you go for a second time, Lucca advised. I'm not bothered by them. It's not like they can do anything to me. Gray shrugged, but in the end he took Lucca's advice, leaving with Reynolds. Chapter 356. Gray and Reynolds left the camp, heading back on their own. Will you refine it now, or later? Gray looked at Reynolds. I think it's best I find a place here to refine it, Reynolds replied after pondering for a few minutes. I guessed as much, Gray said. He was also eager to feed Void the liquid that was in the pendant the young man gave to him. They walked into the forest. If they went further, they would reach the rocky mountain. The duo soon found a cave in the forest. After Gray walked around to ensure it was safe, he made an array around the cave before stepping into the cave along with Reynolds. He tossed the lightning tree to Reynolds before going to the side of the cave. He planned to protect him while he was refining the tree. Reynolds quickly unwrapped the cloth that Gray used in covering it. As soon as the cloth left the lightning tree, lightning essence immediately spread out in all directions. Wouldn't this attract people here? Reynolds couldn't help but ask when he saw how powerful the essence was. Given the purity, as well as the intensity of the essence, it was bound to attract attention not just from people, but the magical beasts that reside in this part of the forest. I've taken care of that. The array I made will help hide the aura from going out, so you don't need to worry about that, Gray assured him. Okay, Reynolds nodded, before he closed his eyes with the lightning tree placed on his lap. Gray watched him for a few minutes, before taking out the pendant he took from the young man. I wonder if he'll have more, he thought. He took out the 2 orbs he removed from the ground under the tree. When he sensed them, a surprised expression appeared on his face. The first orb he took didn't have as much essence as the second one. The second one was not only better, it had a higher density as well. How come he didn't tell me of this one? Or could it be he didn't know of it? Multiple questions ran through Gray's head as he studied the orbs. Red lightning danced around the first orb, with lightning essence that's almost double the intensity of that in the lightning tree. Gray kept the orbs back in the storage ring. He would think about that later. For now, he wanted to see what effects this liquid would have on Void. He brought Void out of the storage ring, placing him on his lap. With little to no effort, he opened the pendant, and the teardrop-like liquid was flowing lightly in the pendant. When the pendant opened, the liquid spread out an aura that soothed his head, making him think more clearly. This feeling gave him a little bit more hope in the liquid being able to help Void. He used his spiritual energy to wrap the liquid, lifting it from the pendant, before gently opening Void's mouth, placing it in it. After the liquid entered Void's mouth, it quickly dissolved inside, spreading into his entire body. The outer part of Void's body lit up with the bluish light the liquid gave off. Gray watched on patiently as the light surrounded Void, shaking a little. He couldn't help it, he was nervous. After 5 minutes went by, the light surrounding Void started to die down. He looked at him with hopeful eyes, but to his dismay, there was no reaction from Void. It didn't work, he thought sadly, disappointment evident on his face. Gray ran his hand through the fur of Void. He sat in that position with Void on his lap for over 2 hours. Later that night, buzz, crack. Gray raised his head, looking at Reynolds. Lightning was currently dancing around Reynolds' body, giving off a glowing light. Gray waved his hand, creating an earth wall at the entrance of the cave, sealing the light inside the cave. He stood up, walking outside. He's about to break through, he muttered while walking out. Chimera Forest. After Gray threw the lightning tree at the young man went in another direction, hoping to escape with the lightning tree. Although it was not his objective in coming here, it wouldn't hurt gaining the boost from the lightning tree as well. It didn't take long though before he figured out that they had been duped by Gray. After running for around 10 minutes, he suddenly noticed that the aura the lightning tree was giving off was starting to decrease. What's happening? He asked in shock. He looked at the lightning tree he had in his hand, and his expression changed drastically. Shit. He scanned us, he yelled out, before ditching the tree. The leopard, which was chasing after him, went after the tree. On seeing it, it was infuriated. Roar! With an angry roar, it sent lightning in all directions, striking some of the people who were behind it. The young man had a wry smile on his face. After managing to escape from the infuriated attack of the leopard, he hid somewhere to try to regain his breath. Running for so long under the numerous attacks from the leopard was difficult. He was hit on a couple of occasions, but luckily, they were not severe. Heh, that guy, he laughed lightly. He waited for 2 hours, recovering the essence he spent on escaping, before turning back in the direction of the hill. 30 minutes later, the young man stood at the top of the hill, walking towards where the lightning tree was previously stood. How did he even do that? He asked in confusion when he recalled how Gray switched positions with him. If Gray had disappeared and appeared close to him, he would have at least believed it was probably because Gray was insanely fast. But Gray not only appeared there, but he also switched places with him. Had he not been fast, then he would have been killed by one of the magical beasts in the area. He shook his head after not being able to figure out how it was possible. He collected the orb, luckily I told him of it. But he wouldn't sense or see the second orb. The young man bent down, before he started digging the place. The reason he told Gray of the first orb was so that he would be able to acquire both orbs. The second one was far better than the first one, but it rarely releases any aura, and on multiple occasions, it forms not under the tree, but somewhere around it. Unknown to the young man, the second orb not only formed under the tree, but Gray had escaped with it. 1 hour later, he had dug almost 10 meters around the place where the lightning tree was standing, digging it over 5 meters deep, but he found nothing. Where is it? He asked with an exasperated look. He was looking haggard from digging so much, a little frustrated, since he knew the orb rarely formed very far or deep from where the tree stood. He calmed his mind before he started digging deeper. He tried to console himself with the thought of this one forming a little further away from how it usually forms. 2 more hours went by. Where's it? The young man asked with his hands on his head. That bastard. He took it as well, the young man said with bloodshot eyes. The thought of someone else taking it didn't come across his mind. He knew only a few people knew of the first orb, much less the second orb. This was something he learned from an ancient text his father acquired. Because of his unique lightning, this seemed perfect for him. He had been searching for a lightning tree for years, and now after finding it, he was unable to obtain what he came for. He even gave Gray the precious pendant he had, all for nothing. Where's he? He looked climbed up from the hole he had dug on the hilltop. He jumped down from the hill, heading in the direction where they set up camp. 30 minutes later, the young man came out of the forest, and immediately headed straight for the guild's camp. The people from the guild were still there, planning to leave the next day. When the young man came out, some of the people who chased after him from the other camps ran in his direction. Where's the lightning tree? Someone asked. They didn't hear the young man when he yelled, neither did they see him ditching the lightning tree. They only saw the attack of the leopard, and not all of them saw that. That guy duped us, the tree he threw away was fake, the young man said with an angry look. The young man walked towards the guild. Where's he? Chapter 357. The leader of the expedition confronted the young man as he walked towards their camp. He's gone. You don't expect him to stay here after obtaining the lightning tree, do you? He asked the young man with a calm voice. HMPH. There's something of mine that he has. The young man snorted coldly. What does that have to do with us? The leader of the expedition asked, this time releasing some of his aura. Nothing. But can you tell me where he came from? The young man changed his approach. I don't even know him, he only accompanied us by chance. And besides, even if I did know him, I wouldn't tell you a thing about him, the leader of the expedition said. The young man looked at the leader, and then at the couple. Seeing their attitude, he knew he would be getting nothing from them. With nothing else to do, he walked back to his camp. Back at the cave, Reynolds had successfully broken through to the 4th stage of the origin plane. But he didn't stop there. There was still quite a lot of essence in the tree, so he wanted to improve further. Gray was currently standing outside the cave, looking into the silent forest. The thought of searching for the young man came to his mind, but leaving Reynolds here alone was a little too dangerous. Although he made some arrays around the cave as well as its entrance, He wasn't sure if it could shield off those beasts at the peak of the origin plane. It was soon daybreak, but Reynolds was still in the middle of his strengthening. With nothing to do, Gray decided to practice the Great Void technique. It was a powerful skill to begin with, so gaining better mastery of it would bring a lot of advantages to him. Just the switch skill that came with it already made him almost unbeatable in fights. The danger levels will decrease by some margin now. I really need to see that guy, Gray thought while looking at the cave. He guessed the young man would be searching for him even more so after he duped them. He couldn't take the risk of not seeing the young man, since he needed to know where and how he got that liquid. After setting up a few more arrays around the cave just to be sure, he vanished into the forest, heading to where the groups camped. It took him 10 minutes to get to the place. It wasn't really far from where they were hiding anyway, but he was sure the people wouldn't go through that area. On getting there, he saw the groups had already started to pack up, preparing to leave the area. Luckily, I moved early. He heaved a sigh of relief, but he stayed hidden. He knew some of the people there would attack him if they saw him. After all, the appealness of the lightning tree hasn't decreased by even the slightest. It didn't take long before he saw who he was searching for. Now all that remains was how to get the attention of the young man. I forget it. What's the use of hiding anyway? It's not like they can kill me, he thought before taking a step out of the forest. Just as he took a step out, he hastily turned around, heading back into the forest. That's too risky. I'll need to think of something. He climbed onto the branch of the tree at the start of the forest, while monitoring the movements of the people. 10 minutes later, the group started moving out. Other than the cause they obtained in the expedition, they got nothing else. Some of them even had it worse, dying. Rustle. A silent rustle caught Gray's attention. The sound felt exactly like when someone was sneaking through the woods, silently. Someone's here, he thought before turning his head around to look behind him. Just as his head was still turning, he caught sight of a lightning arrow shooting towards him. The lightning arrow was already within 3 meters of him, drawing nearer even while his head was still turning. The arrow will surely be able to pierce his head before he turns around completely. Buzz. Boom. Gray vanished from the tree, dodging the arrow by a slight margin. The arrow crashed into the tree, destroying it in the process. The commotion attracted the attention of the groups who just started to move away from where they camped. What's that? Lucca asked, looking in the direction of where the sound came from. It's a lightning-based attack, the leader of the expedition said. Although they were over 700 meters away from the tree, he could still see the silvery flash of lightning from the explosion. Lucca squinted his eyes, looking at the area of the explosion. Stay here, I'll be back shortly, he said to his wife. Okay. His wife nodded. Lucca was the only one who decided to head in that direction. The reason for this was simple. No one wanted to get involved in a fight that had absolutely nothing to do with them. There's a chance that 2 powerful magical beasts were fighting, so going near the area might incur the wrath of both beasts. I didn't think the moron stayed behind, Lucca thought with a smirk as he headed closer to the forest. He guessed it correctly. It was the attack of the lightning elementalist from the triplet. When he chased after him, he managed to slip away due to some tricks, but he never thought he wouldn't go far. But who is he attacking? He's not stupid enough to attract my attention when he fully knows I would come for his head. He paused, but only for a few seconds before continuing. He thought of the possibility of this being a trap, but he just couldn't stop himself from not checking it out. After what the triplet had done to him and his wife, he couldn't stand to let this chance go. At the forest, Gray appeared on the tree close to the one he was previously standing on. He didn't know who attacked him, or where the attack came from. He looked in the direction of where the arrow came from, but he couldn't see or sense anyone. Damn it, how could I have been so careless? He said, a little angry at himself. If not for the space element, then he would have either died from that attack, or would have been severely injured. Who's there? Come out. Gray called out. Boy, there's something strange about your movement technique. Gray heard a voice coming from every angle. It was like the person was speaking from different places, making it difficult to pinpoint his location. Come out, and I might tell you about it. Gray spoke calmly. He felt the voice was familiar when he heard it, but he didn't know where he had heard it before. How did you switch places with me? The voice asked another question. Oh, it's you. I knew the voice was familiar. Haha. Now I don't have to worry. Gray laughed out while using his hand to rub his chest. The fear of the unknown was something that affected anyone. Not knowing who was attacking him scared him a little. But now that he knew it was the lightning elementalist from the triplet, he felt unbothered. Gray's behavior annoyed the lightning elementalist. It was like he didn't take him seriously after finding out he was the one speaking. What insolence! Do you think I can't kill you from where you stand? The lightning elementalist said angrily. If you aren't scared, why are you hiding? Gray laughed in an annoying way, further infuriating the lightning elementalist. Swoosh, buzz, bang. Another lightning arrow shot towards Gray from the right, but he was able to quickly see it this time. He moved to the other side, before sending a fireball in the direction the lightning arrow came from. Boom! The fireball exploded, covering a wide range, but there was no reaction from the place. If you think I am in the position where the arrow comes from, then you still have a lot to learn, boy. The lightning elementalist's voice spoke out steadily. Come on out, old man. Oh wait, I forgot, you're scared of a little boy. That's why you ran away the last time, Gray said while laughing out loud. When the lightning elementalist recalled how Gray used the leopard to attack him and his brothers, he was annoyed. You little brat is the reason why 2 of my brothers are dead, the lightning elementalist said angrily. And here I am, the reason even you are going to die as well. Gray spread out both hands. Swoosh, bam. Another arrow shot towards Gray, but he was able to dodge it, while attacking where the attack came from. Why are you still here? Lucca's voice came from behind Gray. Chapter 358. I knew you were the one coming. Gray turned to look at Lucca. Watch out. Lucca raised his left hand, a bolt of lightning shooting out of it. Gray smiled, before quickly evading the attack that was coming from behind him. Boom. Lucca's lightning bolt struck the lightning arrow that was meant for Gray's head. Trying to sneak attack me won't work. Gray's appeared on another tree before saying, HMPH, I'll get you one way or another. The lightning elementalist snorted coldly. I didn't think you'd get to this level where you would sneak attack a kid, Lucca said while looking around the forest trying to figure out the lightning elementalist's position. Once the kid dies, you're next, the lightning elementalist said confidently. Bold of you to assume you can kill me, Gray said while twirling his right index finger in the air. If not for the fear of this guy aiding you, I'd have come out long ago to kill you, the lightning elementalist scoffed. Okay, how about this? We should make a bet. As long as you come out on your own, he'll promise not to intervene in the fight. That way, you could fight against him when you're done killing me. How does that sound? Gray asked, still twirling his finger. Do I look like a child you could trick with a few words? I've been a mercenary for years now. I know more than believing an enemy, the lightning elementalist said, not believing Gray's words one bit. Well, I tried, Gray said with a shrug. What do you mean you tried? The lightning elementalist asked, a little confused. Even Lucca looked at Gray with a strange expression. I mean, I tried giving you an opportunity to at least give you a fair fight. But guess you were too foolish to take it, Gray said with a strange smile while tilting his head to his left. He looked right through the trees as if he could peer through them. Around 80 meters away from where he was standing, the lightning elementalist could be seen looking at them. Impossible. How did you find me? The lightning elementalist was stunned by the fact that Gray had managed to locate him. This was something even Lucca couldn't do, and Lucca was stronger than himself. Haha, it's simple. But you see, I don't like divulging my secrets to dead people. It's just of no use to them. Gray laughed out loud. You little brat, I'll kill you even if it's the last thing I do, the lightning elementalist said, before sending out multiple lightning arrows in Gray and Lucca's direction. They were forced to dodge the attacks of the lightning elementalist, but they made sure to follow his movements, because he tried slipping away again. This was exactly how he escaped from Lucca's hand the last time. Luckily, Gray managed to find him this time. Lucca looked at Gray, feeling surprised by his prowess. He thought about how Gray managed to find the lightning elementalist. It was then that he recalled when they were crossing the swamp. At that time, Gray would occasionally place his finger in the swamp, and after doing that, he would get the general location of where the beasts were, and where they weren't. I see, no wonder he was twirling his hand while speaking. He was using that thing. Such a resourceful kid. He would do well as a mercenary, he praised Gray in his mind. You can't hide anymore, old man. Stand there so you can join your brothers quickly, Gray said before chasing after the lightning elementalist. Lucca joined in on the chase as well. He couldn't allow the lightning elementalist to escape for a second time. Boom, bang. They attacked as they chased after him. Being adept in movement techniques, the lightning elementalist managed to dodge most of their attacks, while also dishing out some of his own. Boom, bam. Their battle quickly moved deeper into the forest as the lightning elementalist tried to escape. On the open field, the people quickly noticed that Lucca had joined in on the battle. The leader of the expedition as well as his wife were able to figure out he was fighting against the lightning elementalist as soon as the battle intensified, but they didn't know who was there as well. Do you think we should assist him? Someone amongst the guild members asked. No need, Lucca will be alright, the leader of the expedition said. He couldn't allow the others to go, since there were some who were closely linked to the triplet. If not for the chaos at the time Lucca and his wife killed 2 of them, then some of the people here would have intervened. But that was not the only reason though. The second reason was that just as the triplet had people who would support them, so did the couple. A brawl would definitely start if that happens, causing chaos between them. The guild might even end up breaking since some of them here were the old timers of the guild. The guild does have some people who are already in the Overlord plane, but being in the Overlord plane puts them above these petty skirmishes of those in the Origin plane. They rarely involve themselves with what's happening with the guild. They would only show themselves if anything were to threaten it. Some of the people here dying wouldn't really bring much harm to the guild, since multiple mercenaries seek to join the guild on a daily basis. The leader of the expedition looked in the direction for a few more minutes before speaking to the others. We should get going, Lucca knows the way. With his command, they started the journey back. Surprisingly, Lucca's wife didn't seem too bothered about her husband, she was just that confident in his abilities. The guild's group was not the only ones who stopped to look at where the explosion came from. All 3 groups stopped. But Lucca was the only one who showed any interest in going there. The young man who Gray saw at the inn looked in the direction of the explosion, and just as their group was about to leave, he caught a small glimpse of a blue flame exploding. It's him. Chapter 359. The young man slipped away from his group before charging towards the forest. He had heard of people with rare flames, but Gray was the only one he had seen. Those blue flames of his were too distinctive. He better remember our deal, or else he'll get the other side of me, he thought while running towards where the explosion was coming from. In the forest, Gray and Lucca were still chasing after the lightning elementalist. Being faster than Lucca, Gray had managed to close up the gap on multiple occasions, but the lightning elementalist would always attack in a precise manner. That would force him to defend against the attack, delaying him in the process. You're faster than he is. Can you try to catch him? Lucca asked after Gray was pushed back again by the lightning elementalist's attack. Well, I'm trying my best, but he's acting like a slippery fox, Gray said, cursing at the same time. Make a feint, Lucca said. What? Gray asked, unsure of what Lucca was getting at. Make a feint, Lucca repeated himself. I heard you the first time. I just don't owe you mean a feint. Gray was about to complain when he suddenly understood what Lucca meant. Yes, Lucca nodded. That's easy, Gray said before speeding past Lucca once again. Is that wow? Lucca had been stunned by Gray's speed from the first time he saw him running. This time though, he caught something that he had not seen before whenever Gray was running, lightning. He had witnessed Gray using 2 elements so far. Now with the addition of the lightning element, that makes it 3. Although there were multi-elementalists, they are very rare, so seeing one as young and as talented as Gray was quite amazing. Gray's burst of speed attracted the lightning elementalist's attention, and just like before he struck out. But to his surprise, Gray stopped before the attack came, before shooting past the place where his attack struck with even greater speed. Swoosh, buzz, bang. The lightning elementalist immediately started attacking wildly, trying to make sure Gray didn't get close to him. But after moving closer, Gray didn't plan on retreating anymore. Bang! Gray sent a fireball in his direction, blasting the tree branch he was about to stand on, making him lose his footing, falling to the ground. Lucca was still some meters away, but Gray naturally had no problems with fighting against the lightning elementalist on his own. All it would take was time, but he knew he would surely be able to defeat the lightning elementalist. Swoosh, boom, bam. Gray and the lightning elementalist continued exchanging moves as soon as they got close to each other, destroying most of the trees around them. When Lucca got there, he had the impulse of screaming, "Is he even a kid anymore?" Gray's fighting capabilities were insane. One has to recall that Gray was still in the 6th stage of the origin plane, while the lightning elementalist was in the 9th stage. The lightning elementalist could even be regarded with those who were at the very peak of the origin plane. Yet Gray was fighting against him, and the battle seems to be balanced. Lucca watched on from the side. It's not that he didn't want to assist Gray, but looking at the battle, he didn't think he would do much better than him. Although he was stronger than the lightning elementalist, he had to admit to the fact that he couldn't just kill him willy-nilly. It would take a good deal of effort on his part. Looking at the battle, he decided it was best he stayed out of Gray's way. He would only join in if the lightning elementalist was on the verge of escaping, although he didn't think he would get that chance, seeing how well Gray was keeping him grounded. Boom, bang. Gray's fireball explosion pushed the lightning elementalist back, slamming him into the tree behind him. Damn it. This kid is a monster. The lightning elementalist was lost for words. Gray was starting to gain the advantage over him, and the battle hadn't even been up to 5 minutes. The explosive power of Gray's fireballs was almost impossible to defend against. Even when he manages to dodge them, the after effects of the explosion still carry so much punch that they could cause major damages if not handled properly. Hey, you see, it's just like I said, you'll fight against me while he watches from the side. Gray walked towards him in a dominant fashion. After being in multiple battles, and almost always coming out on top, Gray developed a dominant aura that shows forth whenever he battles. This aura alone dwindles the spirit of whoever is fighting against him. It's like they know beforehand that they were fighting a lost battle. Gray rarely fights any battles without confidence. This confidence makes him believe no matter what happens, he would surely come out on top. We're just getting started, boy. I'll show you what it means to be a mercenary. The lightning elementalist moved from the tree, dodging Gray's fire attack. You see, funny enough, the first person I killed was a mercenary. Gray chuckled before attacking once again. Earth spikes sprang up from the ground, forcing the lightning elementalist to go airborne. When the lightning elementalist went airborne, Gray immediately attacked with a widespread lake of flames that covered a 20 meters radius, not giving the lightning elementalist any chances of landing. With the lightning elementalist airborne, Gray started attacking with his fire and earth elements simultaneously. Smack! An opportunity presented itself, and Gray created a large earth pillar that he used to smack the lightning elementalist flying. Bang! Bam! Crash! The lightning elementalist went through 4 trees, destroying them, before crashing hard onto the ground. Lucca clicked his tongue on seeing Gray bullying the lightning elementalist. He couldn't even say it was a fight among equals. The difference between both fighters was clear for all to see. Gray was simply bullying the weak. Chapter 360. Bam! Bang! The lightning elementalist was sent flying once again by Gray's attack, this time crashing hard into a tree, almost breaking it in 2. Gray appeared in front of him with no time to spare, punching him straight in the face, sending him flying again. Bang! Crash! The lightning elementalist crashed into the ground, sliding for almost 20 meters before stopping in a small crater his body formed. Such a brutish way of fighting. Lucca muttered, feeling a little empathetic for the lightning elementalist. Gray's way of fighting was strange amongst elementalists. He had noticed it the first time when he saw Gray exchanging blows with the stone apes with his bare fists. Elementalists usually outgrow this method of fighting once they get to the arcane plane. Yet, Gray was still using it, and for some reason, he noticed Gray's physical strength was far superior to theirs. Gray kicked the lightning elementalist, sending him into the air once again. While he was still mid-air, he appeared above him, stomping on his chest heavily, stamping him into the ground. Crack! The lightning elementalist coughed out blood before he even reached the ground. After landing, he felt a sharp pain coming from his chest. Over 50% of his rib bones were broken from Gray's aggressive attack. He tried to open his mouth, but blood was the only thing that came out of it. Lots of blood. "You're weaker than I expected," Gray remarked casually after landing. His casual remark threw Lucca off his feet. "What do you mean he's weaker than you expected? You're the one who's stronger than normal." He almost screamed out loud, but he managed to keep himself calm, not to give away his image. Cough, cough. The lightning elementalist continued coughing blood. He tried moving his arms to cover his mouth, but he could barely move them. I'm done, you can complete your revenge now. Gray turned to Lucca. The lightning elementalist could barely move, so he didn't see any reason in fighting anymore. He still had to search for the young man to see if he could acquire more of that liquid. Lucca looked at Gray for some time, before shaking his head. He had completely given up the idea of looking at Gray normally. Buzz. Swoosh. Gray blinked twice before disappearing from his position. Lucca's pupils enlarged when he saw Gray suddenly disappearing. A lightning arrow shot past the place where Gray was previously standing. What sort of movement technique is that? Or has he been able to attain the legendary speed that allows one to leave behind an afterimage when moving? Lucca muttered to himself in shock. Bam! The lightning arrow struck a tree, almost destroying it. Gray soon appeared a few meters away. I knew you wouldn't give up so easily. Even when you can't move, you're still plotting a sneak attack. Lucca was so shocked by Gray's movements that he stood rooted to the ground, not moving an inch. He had read of people who attained unimaginable speed, that allows them to move so quickly, that they leave behind an image of themselves even after leaving the place. That explains why the leopard was unable to keep up to him. This boy is unbelievable, he thought. Gray didn't know what was currently going through Lucca's mind. All he did was escape from the sneak attack with the space element. Although he had also read of people who were able to leave afterimages due to their speed, he hadn't gotten to that level yet. Aren't you going to kill him? Although, I think he would still die anyway, given how serious his injuries look. He called out to Lucca, who had spaced out. Oh, right. Lucca came back to his senses. With a point of his finger, he sent a tiny lightning bolt that shot past the forehead of the lightning elementalist, leaving a small hole in it. The lightning elementalist twitched twice before his movement stopped completely. What are you still doing in the forest? Lucca asked after taking care of the lightning elementalist. Ray's refining the lightning tree. I'm guarding him while we're here. Gray replied. You also have the lightning element, right? Lucca asked. Gray looked at him for a few seconds before nodding. You're a good friend, Lucca said before turning around. Not everyone would give up the chance of getting stronger for their friend. He could tell Gray didn't even split the tree with Reynolds, allowing him to refine everything which would bring him better benefits. He'd do the same for me, Gray replied with a small smile. All my friends would. He said the last statement while caressing the ring on his hand. It's good to know you have such friends. Your horses will be left at the same place. Make sure you leave here on time, Lucca said before turning around. Okay? Thanks for your help. Gray waved at him before following after him. Lucca noticed he was coming in his direction, but refrained from asking anything else. He coated himself with lightning before disappearing, chasing after his group. The fight lasted around 15 to 20 minutes, so he guessed the others would have left by now. Gray soon got to the edge of the forest again, but this time, he didn't see anyone there. They must have left, but I don't think that guy would leave without taking what he asked for, he muttered. After waiting for almost 30 minutes, he decided it was time to go back. He had to check up on Reynolds to ensure he was doing okay. When he got to where the cave was located, he was surprised to see the young man sitting outside the cave, seemingly waiting for him. Gray's expression changed only for a second before hiding it. How did you find this place? He asked as he walked up to the young man. It's not that hard to find, if you know what you want, that is. The young man replied with a smile. Chapter 361. I see you have the real lightning tree. You even gave it to your friend. Such amazing kinship is rare to find. The young man said with a strange smile. Who I give what I obtain is none of your business. Gray replied calmly. Sorry, my bad. The young man apologized while raising both hands as if surrendering. Do you have what I want? He asked after apologizing. Yes. Gray took out the orb from his pocket. It was neatly wrapped in a cloth. Can I see it? It'll be a shame if you were to dupe me twice. The young man said, stretching out his right hand. I want something from you, Gray said, placing the orb back in his pocket. You're going to bargain with what I've paid for. The young man raised a brow. Well, technically, you didn't pay for it. Had I not acted quickly, then you'd not only have it, You'd also have the lightning tree. You only gave me that to show your sincerity, in case I was the one who obtained the orb in the end. Gray replied with his hand on his chin as if thinking, but don't worry, I don't want anything major from you. Gray said again with a wave of his hands. Fine, what do you want? The young man said with gritted teeth. Do you have more of that liquid? If yes, can I have some? If no, then where can I find it? Gray asked. The one on the pendant. The young man asked to be sure. Gray nodded, before taking out the pendant which had lost its glow. No, I don't have it. Neither do I know where to find it. The young man replied. A shame, looks like you wouldn't be getting the orb after all. Gray said while shaking his head sympathetically. Look, it was given to me by my father. It helps keep the mind clear, so I always have it on me. I only gave it to you because this was more important to me. The young man said in exasperation. You really don't know? Gray asked again. No. The young man shook his head. Gray sighed when the young man shook his head before sitting on the ground, not showing any signs of wanting to give the orb to the young man. He was trying to see if the young man knew something but was not telling him. What are you doing? The young man asked, his face filled to the brim with anger. Sitting, and I suggest you should be going. I can fetch a hefty sum from this. And I might even get the information I want as well. Gray brought out the orb, tossing it into the air and catching it. The young man looked at Gray with veins already appearing on his forehead. I've heard of a rumor about a liquid like this being in the magical beasts forest. The young man said. Oh, so you knew something. Gray looked at the young man. It's a rumor. I'm not certain of it. The young man responded. I feel you know more than what you're divulging. Gray squinted his eyes. Damn it, I hate this boy. I'll kill him and his friend after I collect the first orb. I'll take the second orb off his dead body. The young man thought inside. There's a place in the magical beasts forest that's filled with bamboo. It's said it can be found there, a whole pond. But like I said, it's only a rumor, and the magical beasts forest isn't like the Chimera forest. The young man said. You see, now did you die after telling me about it? Gray asked with a playful smile. Although he wasn't even 50% sure what the young man said was accurate, he would try to find out from others as well. And besides, there's a huge chance that the young man was only lying so he could take the orb. There's no way he would be able to find out anyway. The young man looked at him with angry eyes, before stretching out his hand again. Gray didn't keep the orb any longer. He threw it in the direction of the young man, but the scene he saw next shook him to the core. As soon as the orb got to the hand of the young man, he opened his mouth and swallowed the orb in one big gulp. Boom! An energy explosion shot out from his body, spreading in all directions. Crack! Crack! The array Gray set up outside the cave suddenly started cracking from the energy that the young man was giving off. Crap! He's breaking through. Gray was stunned by what was happening. He knew the young man was in the late stages of the origin plane, but he never really bothered with him, since he was confident in his abilities to fight against those in the origin plane. But never in his wildest dreams did he think the young man would ingest the orb and start breaking through. And from the energy he was giving off, he seemed to be breaking through to the Overlord plane. How unlucky! Gray rushed over to where the array was located, and immediately started reinforcing it. If the array was to fall apart, the energy the young man was giving off would do a lot of damage to Reynolds, who was in the middle of cultivating. Gray wasn't feeling any pressure from the young man. He attributed it to what happened when Alice's father also tried pressuring him with the superior aura of an Overlord plane expert. He had tried attacking the young man while he was still in a somewhat unconscious state, but all his attacks seemed to be repelled by an unseen force. This guy's definitely going to try to kill me for sure, but I can't escape now, since Ray is here. Damn it. Gray thought while staring at the young man. I can only depend on that now. He quickly came to a conclusion and sat down in front of the array in a cross-leg position. He was going to fight against the young man using the fusion state. For some reason, he actually felt excited. Chapter 362. Reynolds, who was inside the cave, sensed the unrest outside, opened his eyes. When he saw Gray sitting calmly in front of the cave, he closed his eyes once again. He was already very close to breaking through to the 5th stage of the origin plane, but there was still just barely over half of the lightning tree essence left. If he wanted to completely refine it, it would take another day or two. I'll need to hurry up, he said to himself. He could tell that whoever Gray was about to face was very powerful, and the only reason he wasn't escaping was because of him. Outside the cave, Gray was slowly starting to merge his essence beads together. He was quite expectant of how strong he would become. Presently, he had 7 elements, and given how the fusion state usually works, it would boost his stage by 7 stages. That should take him to the 3rd stage of the Overlord plane, but he didn't know if the fusion state would push him into Overlord plane. After all, it was a different plane, not a stage. The energy the young man was giving off continued rising. After a few minutes, it slowly started dying down. The young man soon opened his eyes, staring in Gray's direction. "Boy, where's the 2nd orb?" he asked while turning to face him. Gray, who had his eyes shut all this while slowly opened it, and it flashed with 7 different colors for about 1/10 of a second, before returning to normal. Thanks to his long breakthrough, I was able to completely fuse all 7 essence orbs, he thought to himself. "Which orb are you talking about?" Gray asked with a lost look. He kept his aura safely hidden, not to alert the young man of his sudden increase in strength. "Don't lie to me. Boy, I could kill you with a snap of my fingers right now. There are 2 orbs below the lightning tree. The one you gave to me, and one that's even greater," the young man said with a light snort. That light snort sent out a tremendous energy wave, but to his surprise, Gray didn't move an inch, neither did anything happen to the array. "My eyes never fail me. I knew you were special," the young man said, not too bothered with Gray not being affected by the energy wave he sent out. He already saw Gray as someone he could kill whenever he wanted, so he decided to entertain him only for a little bit. Once he gets the orb, he'll kill him. If he finds out Gray doesn't have it, he'll kill him as well. Either Gray dies. "I had no knowledge of the red orb, well, until you spoke about it. Does that mean there's a 2nd one as well?" Gray feigned ignorance. His acting was so good that the young man didn't think he was lying. He knew Gray didn't know about the red orb being under the lightning tree, so there was no way he could have known of the other one unless it was just beneath the 1st orb, and he saw it. Could it be that one of those people searched the place? The young man asked himself. "Since you don't know about it, then there's no use in leaving you alive anymore. I'll quickly kill you and chase after those people from the guild," the young man said. After saying that, he waved his hand, and a huge red lightning fist appeared mid-air. It shot straight towards the cave. He wanted to kill Gray and Reynolds in one clean strike. The strength in the lightning fist was not something anyone in the origin plane would be able to defend against. Although the difference between the peak of the origin plane and the 1st stage of the Overlord plane was just a single step, the difference in strength is huge. A single Overlord plane expert could kill over 20 peak origin plane experts in a battle. Gray looked above him, looking at the fist. A smile formed on his lips as he stood up. He cracked his fist, before darting a look at the young man. Whoosh! Boom! Gray suddenly disappeared from the ground, appearing in front of the fist, with his hand covered in blue flames. He punched the lightning fist, and it exploded. The shockwave from the explosion spread out in all directions, destroying the trees around the cave, but not affecting the cave in any way. The young man unconsciously took a step back in shock when he saw this happening. He waved his hand and easily neutralized the energy wave that was coming his way. After the energy settled down, the young man got another shock. "Impossible," he said in disbelief. "Come on, it's been a while I felt this good." Gray motioned to the young man with his hands while standing in the air. "How's this possible?" The young man took to the sky, standing opposite Gray. "There are a lot of things you'll never be able to understand, so there's no use explaining." Gray blinked twice even before he finished his statement. After blinking twice, he disappeared. A huge hammer soon appeared on the left side of the young man, slamming towards him. The young man, who was still looking at where Gray was previously standing, managed to quickly sense the attack. With a twist of his body, he dodged the attack while punching the hammer with a lightning fist. Lightning ran across the hammer, before destroying the rocks into debris. Gray appeared on his right side and attacked again, this time with the fire element. Boom, bang. It didn't take up to a minute before the area they were fighting in was completely left in ruins. Other than the cave, the other parts of the area were completely destroyed, and this was just from the after effects of the attacks, not the main attacks. Haha, This is amazing. Gray laughed out while attacking again. Boom, bang. His fire snake was met with a lightning bolt which caused both attacks to explode, pushing both fighters back a few meters in the air. Chapter 363. Boom. Gray was pushed back by the attack of the young man. Swoosh. The young man suddenly appeared close to him, punching him with his hands coated in lightning. Crack. Bang. The blue vest's protective light broke when the fist got close. Gray slammed into the ground from mid-air. How's he doing it? The young man muttered while looking at the dust that kicked up after Gray slammed into the ground. His pupils suddenly dilated when he didn't see any sights of Gray in the crater he formed after he slammed into the ground. Whoosh. Bam. Gray suddenly appeared above him and smashed him with both fists tightly connected together. The force of the attack was so powerful that even after it sent the young man plummeting into the ground, Gray turned a few times in the air before managing to regain his balance. Boom. The young man crashed heavily into the ground, creating an even greater crater than the one Gray did when he crashed previously. Gray stood mid-air, looking down at the crater with a dominant expression. The dust soon died down, and Gray saw the young man standing up, looking at him. He disappeared again, appearing on the left side of the young man, but the young man was able to block the attack, but was forced to retreat a few steps back by the force. Bang, bam, boom. They continued fighting with both fighters getting hit by the other's attack. Buzz, crash. A red lightning rain suddenly started with Gray stuck in the middle, but with a flicker of his body, he disappeared from the attack range. You're not in the Overlord plane, but I can't say you're in the Origin plane either, the young man said to Gray. He just broke through, so he wasn't the most powerful person in the first stage of the Overlord plane right now, but given the uniqueness of his lightning, he could fight against those in the first stage of the Overlord plane. While they had been battling, he had tried to sense what was going on with Gray, but he hadn't been able to comprehend it. As I said, there's no use in explaining it to you. Gray scoffed while cleaning the blood that was flowing from the side of his mouth. He wasn't the only one hurt. The young man was also injured, and Gray was sure he had some internal injuries as well, due to the number of times he had punched him on the body. The young man attacked once again, sending multiple lightning bolts to attack Gray while going closer as well. He had noticed that Gray was very welcoming to hand-to-hand combat, and since he could cover his fists with the lightning element to increase the strength of his attacks, he decided to get closer to him. Gray looked at the lightning as well as the young man that was coming his way. It's time to use a third element in this battle, he said to himself. Although he had been using 3 elements so far, the young man had no knowledge of the space element which he was using for mostly escaping. He didn't know any space element attacks, and he hadn't been able to study it properly. So for now, he was only using it for escaping or dodging attacks. The element he decided to use was the darkness element. The reason for this, its insane destructive nature. Since the young man wanted to engage in hand-to-hand combat, he would slowly inject darkness essence into his body, causing him unimaginable harm. Gray quickly used his fire element to block the lightning strikes that were coming his way, before charging at the young man with hands coated with both the fire and the darkness element. The fire element was at the top, so it shielded the darkness element. Bam, bang. The sound of flesh hitting flesh started resonating in the entire forest. Gray naturally had the advantage in this fistfight due to him having superior physical strength compared to his opponent. In the cave, it had been 5 minutes since the battle started, and the array was still intact. That's to Gray always protecting it, and moving the battle away from that area. Crack! A cracking sound came from Reynolds's body. He had successfully broken through to the 5th stage of the Origin plane. There was still half of the essence left in the lightning tree. Reynolds looked at the lightning tree. Before staring outside, his expression changed when he saw the damage that had occurred just after the entrance of the cave. Even inside the cave, he could feel the tremors of the battle that was going on outside. Reynolds looked at the lightning tree in his hands, and an idea popped into his head. He had never heard of anything like that happening before, but he felt that there was a chance it might work. He wanted to use the lightning tree on his elemental warrior. As soon as the thought came to his head, he immediately implemented it. He summoned his elemental warrior and started channeling the essence in the lightning tree into it. At first, he didn't see any response, But after almost a minute, he noticed that the essence in the lightning tree was suddenly depleting at a tremendous speed. This was when a thought came to him. It's not that no one ever tried to do it. It was just that where the hell would they get such a huge amount of elemental essence to feed it? Within the space of a single minute, the elemental warrior had sucked 1/4 of the essence that was left in the lightning tree. This was something that took Reynolds around 6 hours or so. Even after sucking 1/4 of the essence, there weren't any visible changes in the aura of the elemental warrior. It was still around the 7th stage of the origin plane, with strength that could rival that of an 8th stage expert. It was after it had taken half of what was left in the lightning tree, did Reynolds start seeing changes in the elemental warrior. Chapter 364. Great. It's improving, Reynolds exclaimed in his mind. The aura of the elemental warrior was slowly approaching the peak of the 7th stage. From how it was going, Reynolds was certain it would get to the 8th stage, or even the 9th stage of the origin plane, before the essence in the lightning tree was used up. Outside the cave, while Reynolds was trying to boost the elemental warrior's strength to further increase his own arsenal, Gray was fighting a gruesome battle with the young man. With both fighters opting to go for close combat, it was easy for them to be damaged from an attack from the opponent. Gray was more fortunate in the battle due to his speed and the space element. The young man, not so much. Bam, bang. Both fighters punched each other solidly on the chest before retreating backward. The young man immediately tried to catch his breath as they separated, likewise Gray. They had been exchanging blows for over 2 minutes now, and both had suffered some damages that they needed to recover from. Having a better physique, Gray wasn't too hurt, at least not internally. The young man, on the other hand, was getting the help of his newfound strength in breaking through to the overlord plane to help repair most of the damages he had suffered. The higher the plane of an elementalist, the quicker they are able to recover from injuries. But there's no way the young man would be able to completely recover within a day or two after suffering such damages. He was only using the energy to make sure they didn't worsen. Such a strange essence bead, the young man suddenly said. He couldn't figure out what was going on with Gray. But given the fact that he knew Gray had 2 elements, he was surprised he was only sensing 1 essence bead in his body. Not just that, but he couldn't even properly observe it. There's an unknown force that always pushes his spiritual senses away when he got too close. How did you not die after swallowing that orb, given the essence in it? You should have exploded, Gray said, gasping for breath mid-sentence. We both have our secrets. I'd really like to take that bead out of you when you're dead, the young man said. Heh, and you think you can kill me? Gray scoffed, not at all afraid of the young man. You used a special technique to merge your essence beads, thereby drastically increasing your strength. The thing about such techniques is that they all have time limits. All I need to do is hang on until said time limit, the young man said with a calm smile. It was like he could see everything unfolding. How he killed Gray and his friend. You think you can make it that long? Gray asked with a smirk. Although he knew the fusion state couldn't last forever, he knew he could still hold on for another 8 to 10 minutes. He could even push himself and hang on for another 15 minutes. Given the amount of darkness essence he had injected in the young man, he was sure to die if he didn't attend to it within the next 10 minutes max. The area they were currently in was around 700 meters away from Reynolds. But Gray was making sure to keep a close eye on the cave. He could sense that the lightning tree's essence was depleting at a fast pace, and he couldn't help but be worried. Why do you cough? Cough. The young man who was talking coughed. When he placed his hand on his mouth, he was stunned when he saw black blood coming out from his mouth. Poison. This was the first thought that came to his head, but he quickly dismissed it, since the only way he could be poisoned was if he ate something. He didn't recall eating anything for the past month now. Even when he was at the inn, he wasn't really drinking or eating anything. It must be his doing. But how? He looked at Gray with dread. Coughing up black blood mostly represented him ingesting poison, but since that shouldn't be possible, and from Gray's smile, he could tell it was his doing, he hastily sent his spiritual sense inside himself, and he was further shocked by his findings. He saw threads of black energy wreaking havoc on his inside. It was a horrifying scene to behold. Darkness element. You have the darkness element, the young man asked in shock. Of course not, Gray denied with a shy smile. You arrogant fool. Do you think this can stop me? the young man said with a shady expression. Of course not, Gray said with the same expression again. His smile soon vanished before adding, but this can. After saying that, he snapped his finger, and 8 inscriptions appeared mid-air, all appearing within 2 meters of the young man in different positions. They all released a black spike at the same time, impaling the young man from different positions. It was impossible to escape. Ugh! The young man screamed in pain as the attacks stabbed him on different parts of his body. Some even went on the come out from the other side of his body. Luckily, he managed to move his head and his chest, or else he would have been killed instantly. Ah, the art of surprise, such a wonderful technique. Gray moaned in pleasure while looking at the injured young man. In inscriptions, you're an inscriber as well. The young man looked at Gray, and fear was starting to appear in his eyes. What else is this young man? He's everything. Of course not, Gray said with the same shy smile. Gray's answer and shy expression annoyed the young man so much that he started vibrating, making the injuries around and inside his body worse. Blug. The young man couldn't keep it in anymore, and spat out a mouthful of black blood. This time it wasn't from the injuries, but it was because of pure unbridled rage. Chapter 365. Ah! The young man screamed in rage. An energy wave shot out from his body, spreading out in all directions. It managed to destroy the attacks of the inscriptions while destroying them as well. Just you watch, I'll kill you, the young man said, and to Gray's utmost surprise, the young man turned and fled. Huh! It wasn't supposed to go like this, Gray said with surprise. He didn't chase after the young man, not because he couldn't catch up to him, but because he needed to leave this place along with Reynolds. A terrifying aura was speeding towards where they were fighting from the Chimera forest, and if his guess was correct, it was none other than the Chimera. Sensing 2 energies that surpassed the origin plane fighting close to its territory for so long, must have alerted it. The lightning tree's essence has been exhausted, it time to leave. Gray quickly disappeared from the sky. In the cave, the elemental warrior just finished absorbing the last part of the essence. Its aura had gotten to the 8th stage of the origin plane. Gray suddenly appeared in the cave, and as if it was by instinct, the elemental warrior attacked with its lightning sword. Gray flicked his hand and a fireball blasted the elemental warrior, sending it flying. Bang! It crashed into the wall on the side. That's rude. Reynolds immediately stood up and yelled at Gray, before dismissing his elemental warrior. Come on, you were trying to show off, Gray said while spreading his hand. Reynolds couldn't help but give out an embarrassed smile. He knew Gray was the only one who could appear from nowhere in the cave, but after seeing the increase in the strength of his elemental warrior, he couldn't help it. He wanted to see how Gray could fare against it. After all, it could currently rival a 9th stage origin plane expert. Seeing how easily Gray was able to send his elemental warrior flying with a single attack, he couldn't help but shake his head wryly. Wait, how come you're this powerful? Reynolds asked in shock when he sensed the energy that was radiating off of Gray's body. We're leaving, the boss is coming, and we can't do anything to it. Gray grabbed him and immediately disappeared from the cave. He didn't even bother to take what was left of the essence stones that he used to make the array. Boom. A few seconds after Gray and Reynolds disappeared from the cave, an attack destroyed the cave, easily destroying the array that was protecting it. Deceitful humans. An enraged voice spoke out from afar. Gray and Reynolds were currently far away. In fact, they had moved so far that they had surprisingly overtaken the group who was still in the Rocky Mountains. With 2 more blinks, Gray and Reynolds appeared after the swamp, where the horses were tied. All right, we should be safe here. Gray's voice came from the void before the duo appeared close to the horses. Reynolds currently had a look of incredulity on his face. All he saw were 3 flashes of light, and they were already here. Did Gray know how many kilometers they had to travel to get here? The space element is such an overpowered element. It's the perfect escape element, he said in awe. No matter how he felt about his elemental warrior being trounced by Gray a few seconds ago, it had been thrown to the back of his head after what just happened. They just traveled a distance that would usually take them hours to travel within a mere 4 or 5 seconds. That was insane. Wait, what was coming? He suddenly asked. He recalled hearing Gray saying the boss was coming. If I'm not mistaken, it was the Chimera. Gray replied while sitting on the ground, tired. Reynolds watched him, and his eyes widened when he sensed Gray's energy started diminishing. It soon got to the level of the 6th stage of the origin plane. How's this possible? What sort of technique is Gray cultivating? He asked himself. He only gave Gray a glance before going to loosen their horses. They needed to leave before the others got here. There's also the danger of the Chimera if it decides to chase. Gray was currently feeling weak from the battle he had with the young man, and he wasn't even sure he could fight properly in the meantime. Luckily, he exited the fusion state on his own, and didn't have to stay till its end. Bud, how come you only got to the 5th stage? Gray couldn't help but ask as they started heading back. Well, after I sensed the battle going on outside, Reynolds went on to tell Gray how he decided to give the essence to his elemental warrior. That ingenious. Gray couldn't help but praise. How are we going to deal with those plants? Reynolds suddenly asked. Crap. Lightning is ineffective against them. Gray asked with a dark look. Reynolds nodded. Damn it. I should have carried the horses with me and taken them to the side. Gray thought dejectedly. He was trying to recover from the fight. Now he had to fight against the plants as well. With no other option, he prepared himself before they got close to the forest. They couldn't wait on the open field before the forest, because it would mean giving the others an opportunity to catch up to them. They entered the forest with Gray fighting against the plants on his own. He set up multiple fire inscriptions around them to use them to help him as he fought against them. Since they were only 2, they traveled through the forest faster than when they were a group. After about 30 minutes, they arrived on the open field after the forest where the plants were staying. As soon as they got there, Gray immediately raised an earth wall to form a tent and instantly started sleeping. He didn't say anything, nor did he even give Reynolds a glance. He just went to sleep on the ground. Chapter 366. The next day, Gray woke up a little later than he usually does. The sun was already shining brightly in the sky. Damn, using the space elements so many times is so taxing. He complained as he stepped out of his tent. Reynolds was sitting casually a few meters away from where he was. The communication device was on his hand, which indicated that he was speaking with Alice. You're awake, he said when he saw Gray walking towards him. Yeah, I'm still tired though. Gray held his head before sitting down close to Reynolds. What do you plan to do now? He asked after a while. Since they've already gotten the lightning tree, then there was no need in staying here anymore. Gray also had important matters to attend to, finding a way to heal Void. He had gotten some clues from the young man, and he planned to immediately head there after seeing Klaus. I'll continue training. You know you're not the only one who needs to grow stronger, Reynolds said. Yeah, given the current strength of your elemental warrior, you don't really have anything to worry about in the origin plane. Only those in the overlord plane can threaten you now, Gray said with a smile. Really? Given how you were able to send it flying with a single attack, I really doubt that, Reynolds said in a disbelieving tone. My strength at that time should be above the origin plane, so it doesn't really count. Gray replied casually. There was no use in hiding that his strength was high. It wasn't like Reynolds didn't see him. Although he wouldn't tell him about the fusion state, he also wouldn't deny the fact that he had a special technique that could boost his strength significantly. Who were you fighting against? Reynolds asked. Since Gray said his strength was above the origin plane, it meant whoever he was fighting against must have been in the overlord plane. There wasn't anyone in the overlord plane amongst those in the groups, so he found it quite strange. Remember that guy who came asking for my assistance? Asked Gray. Reynolds thought for a while before nodding his head. Actually, he has a special kind of lightning, red lightning. Gray explained why the young man came to ask for his help, and also how he got to the overlord plane. Wait, you mean he actually swallowed an orb that had more essence than the lightning tree and survived? Reynolds asked in shock. Correction, he swallowed it and advanced. Gray said. That's insane, Reynolds said. If I think about it correctly, I think I've done something like that before. Gray placed his hand on his chin while going deep in thoughts. I can't seem to remember it, but I think I can. He shook his head after a while. Gray doesn't have a problem with refining things that contain so much essence due to the orb. He could even swallow beast cores like they were candy, but he doesn't really do it. Monster, Reynolds murmured while giving Gray a weird look. We'll have to wait a little longer before leaving. I really need some rest. Gray laid on the ground, looking at the sky. Reynolds looked at him before asking, "What about that guy? You said he promised to kill you before he left. He's not someone we should concern ourselves with, remember, he escaped. I think I can deal with him when we next meet. My only worry now is that he might search for you as well." Gray expressed his concern. There was a slim possibility of the young man killing Reynolds if he ever saw him, so he naturally couldn't remove this possibility. "I'll be fine," Reynolds said. "You said your elemental warrior was able to absorb the lightning tree?" Gray suddenly asked. "Yeah. I didn't even think it would be possible at first," Reynolds said. Would it also be able to absorb the other orb?" Gray fell deep in thoughts. If the elemental warrior could absorb the lightning tree, then technically, it should also be able to orb the red orb. It was lightning essence after all. If it's possible, then the elemental warrior would receive a significant boost in strength, further guaranteeing Reynolds' safety. See if it could absorb this. Gray brought out the orb, handing it to Reynolds. Reynolds collected the orb, looking at it seriously. "This is what that guy wanted, right?" "Yeah, but I don't think he knows I have it even if he does. It's not like he could take it." "What did you plan to do with it?" "Refine it." "I thought it was for those with red lightning alone." "Oh please, I can refine anything as long as it has an elemental essence in it." Looking at Gray's confident demeanor as he said this, Reynolds was sure he wasn't lying. He looked at the orb with a confused expression. To be honest, he didn't want to take it. The reason for this was simple. Gray had already given him the lightning tree. Although he felt grateful for having such an amazing friend, he felt taking this as well was no different from taking advantage of Gray's kindness. Yes, Gray was the one who gave it to him, but being the one who receives and never gives didn't feel great. "I don't need it." Reynolds tossed the orb back to Gray. "What do you mean, no?" Gray asked, confused. "It was just an orb that contained lightning essence. Why did he reject it?" "I don't need it." Reynolds remained resolute in his decision. It already felt like he was dependent on Gray. Taking this just so he could advance faster would mean he wanted to continue depending on him. Stop being stupid and take it. This is not the time to be reasonable. Right now, we need as much upgrade as we need. I'm heading to the magical beast forest. I'm bound to obtain something that would boost my strength. Gray said. Yes, that's all the more reason you need it. The magical beast forest isn't somewhere even the Chimera can do as it pleases. Yet it was able to make you flee while you were in that powerful state. To be honest, you need this more than I do, Reynolds said. Gray looked at him, not responding. The place soon fell into silence. Chapter 367. You're being stupid, you know that, right? Gray finally spoke up. It's not like it's the first time. Reynolds with a shrug which threw Gray into a fit of laughter. Fine, I'll refine it. You know what, I'll do it now, Gray said before walking back into the tent he made. Since Reynolds wanted him to refine it, then he would do it now. Besides, he wasn't sure if he would get an opportunity again before stepping into the magical beast's forest. Reynolds watched him go in with a smile. He could have accepted the orb and improved the strength of his elemental warrior. Sensing the essence inside, he was sure it would have been able to get to the Overlord plane. But Gray was the one in more danger when he looked at it properly. The Emperor was not only searching for him, but so were the 3 other empires. Even though they had been unable to catch him now, what if he was seen by someone stronger than the young man he fought the previous day? Then what? Inside the tent, Gray looked at the orb and shook his head wryly. He didn't really want Reynolds to be annoyed. Hence he decided to take it. Besides, dragging who would refine the orb was useless. Since Reynolds refused, he would most likely not refine it even if he left it on the ground next to him. He closed his eyes, unprepared to refine the orb, thinking of how the young man did it. He had the impulse of doing it. What have I got to lose? With that, he opened his mouth and tossed the orb inside. With a single gulp, the orb went straight down to his stomach. As soon as it got there, it exploded out with terrifying energy that scared the hell out of Gray. But as soon as the energy exploded out, a second energy was emitted from Gray's body. The energy was able to quickly tame the wild energy that was coming out of the orb. Oh, I knew I could do it, he thought while focusing on trying to direct the docile energy to his lightning essence bead. Although he said this, his back was saying something different. His clothes were currently soaked with sweat from fright. With the amount of energy in the orb, Gray felt confident in not just breaking through to the 7th stage, but the 8th stage as well. That was not the only thing he was confident about. The second thing was an increase in his lightning element's elemental grade. He had been unable to improve the grade of his lightning element for a long time now, so he actually felt quite happy refining this. The reason he suggested giving it to Reynolds was when he found out that the elemental warrior could absorb it. After guiding the red lightning essence to his essence bead, he slowly started to integrate it with his lightning essence bead. He was taken aback when he noticed that when the red lightning essence entered his essence bead, it did not change to the normal silver-colored lightning essence inside. Instead, it remained the same color. He didn't think much about it, and focused on guiding the essence for now. When he had completely refined everything, then he would think about what was going on with the red lightning essence. Because of the way he swallowed the orb, the speed in the refining process improved to a terrifying rate. Compared to others, his speed had always been faster. But now, it was almost on the same level as the speed with which the elemental warrior was absorbing the lightning tree's essence. Within the short time of 10 minutes, he had completely refined the essence contained within the orb. It was only after completely absorbing it did his breakthrough begin. Boom, bang. A violent energy shot out of his body, destroying the earth tent he made. Reynolds, who was sitting on the ground, was shocked by the energy wave that spread in his direction. What the hell? What's he up to now? He quickly retreated 50 meters away from the place. But after standing, he realized it didn't change much, so he retreated further back. He's going to draw so much attention. Reynolds shook his head while looking around vigilantly. He's only breaking through in the origin plane. Only God knows what sort of ruckus he'll make when he's breaking through to the Overlord plane. He prepared himself in case anyone came close. Although he knew no one would come, it didn't hurt to be too careful. Swoosh! The energy wave soon kicked up wind around Gray, and inside the wind, red lightning could be seen moving around it. 2 minutes later, the windstorm slowly started reducing. Gray could be seen sitting with his eyes still closed. It was like he knew nothing of what happened around him a few minutes ago. He opened his eyes, and red lightning flashed across it. A smile formed on his lips as he stared at his hand. At the tip of his finger was a little red lightning bolt. So, that's why it didn't change. But how come it's on a separate side? He thought to himself. Presently, his lightning essence bead has 2 colors. Half of it was the normal silver color, while the other half was surprisingly red lightning. Gray never expected he would actually obtain it. But what was more unexpected was that he could actually switch between the lightning he wishes to use. The red lightning was naturally more powerful, but it was more eye-catching. Hey, what's with all the ruckus every time you break through? Reynolds asked from afar. It's not always, only on some special occasions. Gray said. Wait. How come it didn't take you up to 15 minutes? Reynolds asked while looking behind Gray as if searching for the orb. I swallowed the orb, it made refining faster. Gray said with a smirk. Monster. For the second time within an hour, Reynolds murmured the same word while looking at Gray like he was something else. Chapter 368. What stage did you get to? Reynolds asked after managing to stop looking at Gray weirdly. 8th stage. But I'm not too far from the 9th stage. Gray replied after checking himself to confirm. Looks like you're going to be the first to get to the Overlord plane. To think we were already in the Arcane plane when you even haven't started cultivating. Reynolds said in all. This was something that had always surprised him. Gray's speed was unfathomable. In a short space of just 3 years, Gray has gone from a regular person to someone who's already close to the Overlord plane. How was that even possible? Yeah. When I think about it carefully, it is kinda unbelievable. Gray replied. Klaus was in the 3rd stage the last time Gray saw him, but he was sure he would have already broken through to the 4th stage already, given the fact that Alice had broken through, and he was ahead of her. Thanks to the lightning tree, Reynolds not only got to the 5th stage, but his elemental warrior also got a major boost. That took it to the 8th stage. It could rival those in the 9th stage without any problems. This meant that Reynolds currently faced no danger, as long as whoever was sent after him was in the origin plane. Unknowingly, Gray's influence had actually made the group grow faster than they would usually do. After all, no one wants to get left behind. Even if Gray grows more powerful, at least they didn't want to be too far behind. We should get going, Gray said while looking in the direction of the forest inhabited by those sentient plants. He could sense the group was making their way here, and they were already almost halfway through the forest. Looks like the Chimera didn't give chase, he thought. Yeah, I wonder how the couple is doing. Reynolds nodded before recalling Lucker and his wife. He had grown to like the couple during the expedition. They were of much help, especially the map they gave to the duo while they were still in the Chimera forest. Without the map, they might have accidentally stepped into one of the territories of magical beasts in the Overlord Plane while leaving the place. They should be fine, I guess, Gray replied. Given Lucker's strength, he didn't think that there would be anyone who could kill him single-handedly in the group, and since the guild seemed united, he guessed no one would attack them. With nothing left for the duo to do in the forest, they immediately started their journey away from it. Gray planned to leave as soon as they left the forest. Initially, he didn't want to create the teleportation array anywhere, but after finding out they would still need at least 1 week of traveling to get to Eternal City, he gave up the idea and would rather create the array somewhere secluded close to the mercenary town. They wouldn't really get to the town, since Reynolds would definitely be assaulted by people from the guild if found, so not going back there was the best option. 2 days later, after traveling for 2 days, the duo was finally within range of the town, but they had no plans of going there. When they got there, Gray told Reynolds of the array he was going to make, which would transport him to Frost City in as little as a minute or so. The space element sure is wonderful. It would be nice if we could have something like this positioned all over the Empire though. It would make traveling easier. Reynolds shook his head. I plan to make more, but the amount of essence stones it consumes is terrifying. Gray said, if he could make more teleportation arrays, then moving would be easy for himself and his group. Only those close to him would be aware of the arrays and how to start them up. He would place a restriction on them so others couldn't use it. But that's something he would think about later in the future. For now, he was focused on heading back to Frost City, visiting Alice once more, before heading out to meet Klaus. Amongst all his friends, Klaus was the one he was actually hoping to see more. The reason, he's Klaus, who doesn't want to be with him. Oh, wait, there's probably a ton of people who would want him dead, given how annoying he is. I'd like to see Klaus though, it's been so long, Reynolds said. Yeah, luckily, you can talk to him when I give him his communication device, Gray said, comforting Reynolds. This thing's a lifesaver. Who would have thought that there would be a way to communicate with people even when they're not close to you? Reynolds looked at the communication device lovingly. Come on, I need to find a good location to create the array, Gray said before moving away from the path that led to the town. The duo went into the bushes around, searching for a place Gray felt was secure enough, and after almost 2 hours, they found nothing. There was no cave nor a tree-packed place in the forest. This place is impossible. We should have just done it back in the forest, Gray complained grumpily. Why don't we head in the direction of Eternal City? We'll definitely find a spot there, and I'll be closer to my place, Reynolds suggested. Yeah, we should do that, Gray agreed. Reynolds planned to continue his training, now that he knew there was a way he could boost the strength of his elemental warrior ahead of him. He wanted to take it to the Overlord Plane as soon as he could. Although they were heading in Eternal City's direction, he wasn't really going there. The only reason he suggested this was in case he was in Frost City and wanted to come to Eternal City, then this would shorten his journey by a week or 2. They followed the route Reynolds took, and on the next day, Gray found a secure place to make the second array. Chapter 369. I have to say, this place is nice, Reynolds commented while looking around the cave. The rumbling sound of water crashing to the ground was resonating in the cave. The cave was well hidden behind a waterfall. Yeah, quite nice. Hopefully, other people won't find it, Gray said. I'm less concerned about people and more concerned about magical beasts. Just imagine appearing here all of a sudden and an 8-foot water bear pounces on you. That wouldn't be nice in any way, Reynolds said, a little annoyed. Come on, it was only a small hit. And besides, you were the one who said you didn't need any help. Gray laughed when he looked at Reynolds' sour expression. When they found the cave, it was occupied by a water bear. The bear was in the 6th stage of the origin plane. Gray initially wanted to scare it away with an attack, but Reynolds said he wanted to test out his strength. After advancing, he hadn't seen a worthy opponent. He couldn't say he wanted to fight with Gray, given how overpowered Gray was, so on seeing the bear, he was excited. The cave was quite spacious, around 100 to 120 meters wide. When the battle first started, the bear was quite conservative, since it was wary of Gray sneak attacking it. But as time went on, it noticed Gray didn't even have any plans of fighting. He went to the side and watched. It immediately exploded out with raw strength which stunned Reynolds. The sudden change caught Reynolds by surprise, which allowed the bear to land a swiping strike at him. It sent him flying, slamming into the side of the cave. Although he defeated the bear at the end, the pain he felt all over wasn't something to joke about. The bear truly planned on killing him with that strike. He didn't kill the bear in the end, letting it go with a small wound. The wound wouldn't really affect its daily life, so he counted it as being lenient with it. "It's lucky I let it live," Reynolds snorted. "Come on, you were invading its home. It's bound to attack. You don't expect it to just sit there and watch you take it, right?" Gray chuckled. "Sigh, I guess it was right to attack, but damn, that hit was ferocious." Reynolds massaged his left arm as he responded. Gray laughed before he got to work. He would be the only one using the array. Reynolds only accompanied him so he would know where the array was, and because he wanted to spend a little more time with his friend. Even though they would be able to communicate more frequently, he doubted Gray would be that free, given how much of a training freak he was. Some minutes later, Gray completed the array, looking at it intensely. There should be a way to link all arrays together, given how this one is only connected to that particular coordinates. It would be difficult to use it to get to another place. I'd have to modify the array when I next plan to use it. Gray thought. "I guess you'll be leaving now," Reynolds said while looking at the array. He still couldn't figure out how these weird lines could move someone from one part of the empire to another in a short time. Arrays had always stumped him, especially how they worked. "No need to think about it. My brain might explode if I think about it too much," he said to himself. "Yeah. We'll see sooner than expected, hopefully," Gray said. "Try to stay alive," Reynolds advised. "Of course. Who do you think can stop me if I want to escape?" Gray said confidently. "An extremely strong and fast peak overlord plane expert," Reynolds replied after thinking for a while. "You're no fun. It's a rhetorical question. You weren't supposed to answer that." Gray almost facepalmed. He knew a wind or even lightning overlord plane expert at the peak of the plane could catch up to his speed even in the fusion state, but he didn't think the Emperor would really send someone that strong after him. "I'm just stating facts," Reynolds replied with a shrug. Haha, it's nice being with you again. We'll soon be able to meet up freely again, soon." Gray punched Reynolds on his shoulder lightly. "Yeah, I hope so," Reynolds replied as he watched Gray step into the array. His eyes almost shot out when he saw the number of essence stones Gray brought out. Essence stones were divided into 3 grades, low, medium, and high. And currently sprawling on the ground were over 50 medium-grade essence stones, which was a lot given how rare essence stones were in the Azure continent. There were very few essence stone mines in the continent, and it was greatly fought over by not only the empires, but the big families as well. Now he understood why Gray said the consumption was insane. He wasn't lying, it truly was insane. "Where did you get so many essence stones?" Reynolds couldn't help but ask. "Oh, this. I took it from Alice's dad," Gray replied. "There's no way he'd give you that much. You stole it," Reynolds immediately concluded. "It's not stealing if Alice was the one who gave me permission." Gray smiled. Damn, her dad would probably be crying after finding out so many essence stones are gone, and he doesn't even have any idea where they went. "It's not like he doesn't deserve it," Gray muttered quietly. "All right, Ray, I'll be going now. I suppose you already know how to use the array?" Gray asked. He remembered telling Reynolds how to use the array, but he didn't know if he would be able to. "Yeah, I think. You know what? Show me again just to be sure," Reynolds said calmly. "You're not even embarrassed you couldn't get it the first time." Gray rolled his eyes before going all over again on how to use the array. It was a very simple process. All he had to do is strike 2 spots, after placing the stones in the right positions. After showing Reynolds how to use it, he activated the array. Goodbye, Ray. Chapter 370. Goodbye, Gray. Hope to see you guys sooner. Reynolds waved at Gray as he watched the array lightening up. With a bright flash, the light peaked before going down as quickly as it peaked. After the light died down, Reynolds was the only one left in the cave. This was the first time he was seeing this outside the trial land. Well, he didn't really see much of this in the trial land, so he was quite fascinated with what he saw. Luckily, Gray's my friend, he thought to himself. The lines of the array soon disappeared, like they were never there. According to Gray, he did this so that others wouldn't be aware of the array's presence in the cave. The people of the continent aren't dumb, them being able to activate the array to the trial land, which was more complex than his own, showed that. Reynolds decided to rest in the cave for 2 hours. After that, he left, heading for where next he might hear of a lightning element treasure. His new discovery of the fact that his elemental warrior could improve its strength was still shocking. He planned to halt his own cultivation, so that he could boost his elemental warrior to the overlord plane. Only then will he be able to walk freely. But for the meantime, he would cultivate whenever he could, since he knew such treasures couldn't be found anywhere. But if he ever finds any, he would be focusing them on his elemental warrior. In a cave not too far from Frost City, array lines suddenly lit up, shocking the few small critters in the place. They looked at the place where the light was coming from, and Gray suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Gray looked around the cave. He knew there wouldn't be any large beasts here, so he didn't really find it surprising. The small animals he saw in the cave were harmless. Although they were magical beasts, they tended not to attack people. The only thing was that they were squirrels. Gray had a thing against rat-type magical beasts after his encounter with those bunnies in the trial land. It's not that he was scared of them, he just didn't like encountering them. They always remind him of that hateful bunny. He wasn't scared of the other bunnies, but that bunny in particular, well, he doesn't even think of it as a bunny anymore. It's quite surprising how someone like Gray, who would charge into a horde of beasts fearlessly without thinking much about it, having such a deep-seated fear for such small animals because of a single bunny. I'd better start going. Gray quickly disappeared from the cave, appearing outside the cave. The teleportation from where he previously was to here took less than a minute or so. The space element sure makes moving easier and better. After leaving the cave, Gray observed the area properly. I haven't even checked the elemental grade of my lightning element. We left hurriedly because of those people. Gray climbed up the hill where the cave was situated. After getting to the peak, he sat down. The hill was only around 50 meters or so high, but he got a good view of the entire forest from there. He sat down in a cross-legged position, then closed his eyes. Chaos space. Gray appeared in the chaos space, and the first thing he did was to go to the lightning region. He wanted to confirm something. If his deduction was correct, then it was a mind-blowing ability. After getting there, he looked at the lightning region, wide-eyed. The lightning region was currently separated into two. Although merged, it was two separate things. The left part was filled with silver lightning dancing about, and on the right side, red lightning could be seen dancing. There was a place where both lightnings merged. With a curious expression on his face, Gray walked into the lightning region. Half part of his body was in the silver lightning, while the other half was in the red lightning. His body was struck with both lightning at the same time, and he could clearly feel the difference between both. The silver lightning had a better shocking ability than the red lightning, but the explosive power of the red lightning was far superior than that of the silver one. Although the silver lightning had more electric power, the red lightning can cause burns faster than the silver one. It was quite strange, thinking about it. It was almost like it had more of a fire style than a lightning style. Other than that, the red lightning was faster. This would greatly increase Gray's already terrifying speed. Can I use both lightnings at once? If I can, then that would be amazing. Gray soon disappeared from the lightning region, appearing at the top of the hill where the stone was located. He didn't come here to comprehend his lightning element, he came to check its grade. Once he was done with that, he would leave the chaos space immediately, heading over to see Alice. Since meeting up with Reynolds, he hadn't spoken to her too frequently. He had been too focused on his training whenever he was free, and since Reynolds was speaking to her, she wasn't really that lonely. On appearing in the temple, he steadily walked to the small stone platform on it. The testing rock could be seen embedded on a small pillar. Without wasting any time, he placed his right hand on the stone, and energy left the stone, running through Gray's physical body. before returning to the stone. Gray still hasn't been able to comprehend how this thing works. This was clearly another space, and only his consciousness could enter this place, yet it is still able to interact with his physical body. Maybe it's because this space is in my body. Gray threw the thought to the back of his head. He would worry about it later. For now, he wanted to see the outcome of his lightning element's elemental grade. He curiously looked at the stone. Chapter 371. Just as I thought, violet grade. Gray muttered when he saw the violet color on the region of the lightning element on the stone. Gray currently had 4 different elemental grades for his 7 elements, with the fire element supposedly being the highest with the cyan grade. Lightning element follows being in the violet grade. The wind and water elements were blue grade, while earth, darkness, and space elements were all in the purple grade. Ah, what's this? A fascinated expression appeared on Gray's face when he looked at the water element. Its grade for some reason had changed from purple to blue. How? I haven't even tried improving it in any way, nor have I absorbed any treasure that has to do with the water element. Gray found this discovery surprising. His elements had never increased without his knowledge, so he found this quite strange. But he couldn't hide the fact that he was happy about it. The higher his elemental grades, the faster his cultivation was. This could be seen in how quickly he had been able to surpass his friends. Yes, he was fortunate to encounter some treasures, but without his fast cultivation, he wouldn't have been able to improve this quickly. His ability to absorb treasures far surpasses others. This makes him absorb the treasures completely, not letting anything go to waste. Even Overlord Plane experts wouldn't be able to do it that well. Unknown to Gray, the drop of liquid ether placed in his body when he was leaving the trial land was what caused the sudden increase in his water element elemental grade. The water was slowly dissolving in his body, strengthening his ice ability, while also improving his grade. Gray was the only one who could increase his elemental grade, just by absorbing any special natural treasures that were affiliated with his elements. For example, had he been the one to refine the elemental essence in the lightning tree, then there's a high probability that his lightning element's elemental grade might have seen an increase. But with Reynolds being the one to refine it, it only increased his strength, nothing more. The grade of the treasures naturally has an impact on whether his elemental grade would increase or not, and the grade of his element before refining also determines if it's possible with that treasure or not. Let's take that Gray was to find a fire element natural treasure. Due to the high grade of his fire element, if the treasure was not at least double the level of what the lightning orb he refined recently is, then there are no chances of his fire element's grade improving. One has to remember that he still didn't know how high the cyan grade was. There's a chance that it's the grade above the violet grade. Then there's also the chance of there being some elemental grades before it. But in the history of the Azure continent, other than the violet grade which is just above the blue grade, Gray hadn't read or heard of there being a higher grade. I'll find out about it later. For now, improving is all that's important. After completing what he wanted to do in the chaos space, he quickly left. Gray opened his eyes, looking at the features of the majestic Frost City that could be seen even from this distance. He planned to start his journey today, so after seeing Alice, he would immediately leave Frost City. On getting to the gate, it was just as rowdy as the first time Gray visited the city. He didn't have a horse with him, and since he wanted to enjoy the view of the city, he decided to walk through the busy streets of the city, heading to the Reyes family compound. On his way there, he encountered some familiar faces, the Earl sisters. This time, the sisters were alone, with no one accompanying them. Hello. Gray waved as soon as he saw them. He didn't really have anything against them, although it looked like he used them. He only took advantage of the opportunity they gave to him. He knew nothing of Gerald's birthday, nor the Lens organization until meeting the girls. It's you, Aldrida said in surprise when she heard Gray's voice. Gray wore a hood to cover up his face. After all, he was still in danger. The Emperor hadn't stopped looking for him. It was just that he was fortunate enough not to have seen any of them all this while. He was not only wary of the Emperor, but during his first trip to Frost City, he made an enemy of one of the big families here, so he couldn't afford to be seen by them. What if they send a powerful Overlord Plane expert after him? He had used the fusion state recently, and he could feel the energy hadn't died down. And even though he could still use it to escape, he didn't want to take such risks. It's been a while, Gray said coolly. Yeah, You disappeared after using us. Elder said coldly. Well, I can't really say I used you, but I just can't deny the fact that without your help, I wouldn't have gotten what I wanted, Gray said, making sure they heard the word help in his statement. Well, that help has placed our family in serious trouble. The Smith family are giving us troubles because we were the ones who brought you to the ceremony, Elder said in an annoyed tone. Gray's expression changed when he heard this. He didn't expect the Smith family would actually place the Earl family in a difficult position, just because he was acquainted with the girls. I'm sorry. That was never my intention. He apologized to the sisters. Your apology won't change anything. My family can't fight against the Smith family, Elder said, her body shuddering from frustration. What about the Rice family? I thought they were fighting with the Smith family. Gray couldn't help but ask. The Rice family have their own troubles to deal with. They can't help us. According to what I heard, the Emperor summoned the head of the Rice family for questioning. Aldrida was the one who spoke up this time. Chapter 372. I don't recall Alice saying anything about this. But he should be fine as long as they don't find Alice in the compound, Gray thought. He wasn't too concerned about Alice's father being summoned to the capital. First of all, they didn't find Alice in the compound, and secondly, the Rice family is a big family. They couldn't be dated back to when the Empire started, but they rose to prominence around that time, after the Empire was formed. The Emperor wouldn't want to eliminate them over mere assumptions. They were most probably searching for Gray's friends. Since they thought he might have shared the Great Earth Essence liquid with them, there wasn't even any proof of that happening. He was more concerned about the Earl family. He didn't like others getting in trouble because of him, but there was nothing he could do to help them. It's not like he could fight against the Smith family alone, and he didn't want to ask Gerald for help. The Lens organization would be able to easily help the Earl family with as little as a single letter, but Gray decided against it. Did the Smith have any demands? Gray asked. If the only thing the Smith family wanted was for them to provide him, then he would go to them so that the Earl family wouldn't be bothered. He could easily escape when he got there. If the Smith family remained unreasonable, then he might get help from Gerald. You, of course. What else would they want? They want you, Elder replied. Well, that settles it. I'll go with you to your family. Then you people would take me to the Smith family. That should be able to get them to stop bothering you people, Gray said. What? You're going to come with us? Elder was taken aback when Gray said those words so carefreely. Yes, I got you people into this mess. It's only right that I fix it. Gray waved. No, I don't agree with it. They'll kill you. Aldrida immediately objected. It's okay. I'll be fine. Gray smiled softly. No, taking you to them is no different from killing you. I don't agree to this, Aldrida said. What are you saying? He said he'll be fine. Stop this tantrum. Elder immediately chided. Unlike Aldrida, she was infatuated with Gray's look. She couldn't deny the fact that he was unbelievably handsome, but it didn't mean she'd choose him over her family. Sister, don't worry. I don't do things I'm not confident in. Do I look like someone who wants to die now? Gray interrupted Aldrida as she was about to continue her objection. But they will kill you, Aldrida said, tears already filling her eyes. Don't worry, I have a huge bargaining chip, so they wouldn't dare kill me. Also, have you forgotten I'm friends with old man Gerald? Gray asked nonchalantly. He wasn't even scared of the thought of going there. The reason for that is simple. He had a plan against the Smith family. This would set the Smith family against the Emperor. Given the Emperor's nature, they might even attack them if he plays his cards well. Unfortunately, he wouldn't be able to take it that far, since he didn't know what plans the Emperor had for him. But he would make sure the Smith got in trouble with the Emperor. What's that? Aldrida asked. Me? They wouldn't dare kill me, Gray replied. When are we going? Elder asked. She had no plans of even knowing what Gray planned. All she wanted to do was take him back to her family, and then send him to the Smith family. It couldn't be helped. After what happened at the ceremony, she hated Gray for using them. Presently, she didn't even believe the name he told them was his original name. Now, Gray replied. He didn't bother about Elder's attitude towards him. She had changed when she noticed how strong he was, so he didn't take her acting this way strange. Alice, I'll have to spend a little time with this family before leaving. Hopefully, my plan is successful. If not, I'll just escape for the meantime, again. He thought to himself. His plan of setting up the Smith family was very easy. After the Earl family had handed him over to them, he would tell them of the Emperor searching for him and his friends. Being a big family, he believed they must have heard a thing or two. After that, he would decide what to do next after the family head responds. If the family head plans to take the Great Earth Essence liquid, then he would communicate with Old Man Gerald and get him to inform the Emperor of the Smith family holding him captive and trying to obtain the Great Earth Essence liquid. But if the family head decides to send words to the Emperor so they would send people here to get him, then he would escape with the space element, thereby making it look like they were trying to play games with the Emperor. If the people sent are in the origin plane, he didn't even mind killing them, so it would look like it was the Smiths family doing. Either way, he would set them up against the Emperor. A few minutes later, Gray and the Earl's sisters appeared in front of a manor. It wasn't as big as the Rice Manor, nor the Lens Manor, but it had the appearance of a wealthy family. "This is my first time coming here, it's pretty nice," Gray commented as the gates were opened for the trio to step in. "Hopefully, it will be your last," Elder said. Gray shook his head wryly. Elder's animosity towards him didn't seem to reduce even after he offered himself to the Smith family, so they wouldn't bother them anymore. They went straight to the main building, heading straight to the main hall. On getting there, 2 guards were stationed in the front of the closed doors. "You can't go in, Melody. Family head is in a meeting with the elders to solve the family problems. He asked us to stop others from disturbing them." The guards stopped the trio. Chapter 373. "We're here because of that. I have a way to solve this," Elder said calmly. "I'm sorry, Melody, but we can't go against the Lord's wishes." The guard at the left side of the door said, "If my father were to find out you didn't permit me entry given the importance of what I'm about to tell him, I doubt you'd be able to keep your head," Elder threatened. The 2 guards exchanged looks. They would naturally easily let Elder enter, but her family clearly told them to make sure no one disturbed them while they were in the meeting. "Did you say it would solve the problem?" the guard on the right asked. They were currently in a difficult position. If what Elder said was correct, then her father would most likely punish them for not allowing her to enter. But if she were lying, then they would be in even more trouble. But there might be a chance that the girls might be able to plead on their behalf. Elder nodded to his question. With gritted teeth, he made way for the trio. The second guard looked at him, and with gritted teeth, he also made way for them. They've decided to place their trust in the sisters. Inside the hall, over 15 people could be seen in the hall, all seated with sour expressions. The people consisted of both men and women, all looked to be over 50. A man with a dignified look could be seen sitting on a chair in the middle, with the others sitting on the sides. The man had dark circles around his eyes. It was evident he had been going through a lot lately. He was none other than the family head of the Earl family. "What do we do now? They want the boy, who we don't even know where he came from. I've spent so much, yet I haven't heard of a Zeke Hoover, nor a person that fits the description of that young man in the neighboring cities," the family head said with a downcast look. "Didn't you get anything from Old Man Gerald?" a man asked. "No, Old Man Gerald gave me a glance and told me to leave." If my conjecture is right, the background of the young man isn't something a family like ours could dare to go against, the family head said, feeling a headache about the issue. "The Smith family is being too unreasonable. They clearly know we can't find the young man, yet they are giving us unnecessary troubles." Another man chimed in. "I think they're taking their frustrations out on us. After Donald was summoned by the Emperor, they couldn't fight with them anymore, since they didn't know why the Emperor summoned him." A lady said, "They're only being stupid. Why bother us over something we don't have a hand in?" A man said. They continued speaking about the matter with different people having different opinions about the problem. While they were speaking, creak, the door to the hall opened slowly, with Gray and the sisters walking into the hall. "Elder, what's the meaning of this?" An old man immediately scolded her when they saw the trio. "Such audacity. You not only came here without permission, but you also brought in a stranger. This is what happens when your father lets you do as you please. We're in a mess because of your actions. Now you defy the family rules as well." Another person scolded, a man this time. They weren't the only ones who scolded Elder as soon as they saw her. Almost half of the people here scolded her with faces of disgust. Elder looked at them with an apathetic expression. She didn't even want to see them again. She slowly glanced at the man sitting in the center chair, her father, waiting for him to speak. "Leave at once, before your punishment increases," an old man said. "Why are you here?" The family head finally spoke up. His question silenced the others who were about to continue scolding Elder. Surprisingly, none of them even said a word to Aldrida. "Father, I want you to meet someone," Elder said, before looking at Gray. "You interrupted a meeting because you wanted to show your father the boy you like." Family head, "You're being too lenient with your children. This is why they keep bringing troubles," the old lady who scolded the first time said, pointing at Elder. Most of the reason Elder had animosity towards Gray even after he said he'd help was just because of this. After the problem started, some of the old people in the family had been blaming her for it. Since she was the eldest, she was supposed to know what to do. Instead, she brought trouble to the family. "Who's he?" the family head asked. "Hello, I'm Zeke Hoover," Gray spoke up calmly, before taking off the hood of the robe that was hiding his face. His bewitchingly handsome face came to view for the people who were gathered in the hall, and they all came to a single agreement: he was handsome. "You're Zeke Hoover?" the family head asked, shocked. "Yes, I encountered the sisters on my way back to the city, and they told me about the crisis your family was facing because of me. So I decided to come to you so you could hand me to the Smith family." Gray went straight to the point. He didn't really have a good impression of some of the people here, so he didn't want to stay here for too long. Most of them were at the peak of the origin plane. The old lady who was scolding Elder the most had not even gotten to the peak of the origin plane. She was still in the 8th stage, just like Gray. Gray felt he might kill her with a single strike if he stayed here for too long. He didn't see any reasons for them to be scolding Elder without even allowing her to speak. TSK, such unreasonable old fogies. Chapter 374. The old family elders looked at Gray in shock. People would usually run away if the Smith family was after them. Well, people without sufficient backings. Yet, here Gray was offering himself up so that they would be pardoned. This further increased the beliefs in their mind that Gray's background was terrifying. Although handing you over to the Smith family would help us pass through this difficult time, I don't agree with it, the leader replied after a moment of silence. The reason for his refusal was simple. What if the strong backing behind Gray decided to act against them because they put him in danger? Then what? They could still somewhat deal with the Smith family, although barely. They were still holding on. But if the terrifying force behind Gray decides to act, then they might be doomed. All these were just his assumptions after adding up all he added when he tried searching for Gray. If even the Smith family couldn't get old man Gerald to tell them where Gray was, that meant he wasn't someone they could mess with. Gray noticed the sense of apprehension from the leader, and was kind of stupefied. What's he afraid of? I'm already here to help. Why is he rejecting my help? He didn't think much about it though. I plan on going to meet the Smith family anyway, so it doesn't really mean much who hands me over to them. But I'm doing this just so that your family wouldn't be disturbed by them again. Aldrida and Elder looked at Gray. They knew he had no idea what was going on, so he didn't even plan on visiting the Smith family. He's only saying this so that their father would agree to take him to the Smith family. They couldn't help but feel grateful inside. If their father were to reject Gray's suggestion, there was nothing the others could do about it. And given what's happening, it would only suffice if he was the one who personally handed Gray over to the Smith family. The Smith family was that unreasonable. Father, you should consider what he said. This would definitely help resolve our problems with the Smith family. And as you've heard, he planned on going anyway. Elder stepped in to plead with her father. This was her chance to redeem herself in front of the elders. Although she wasn't particularly welcoming towards them, there was no way for her to live in the manor peacefully, given how they currently treated her. Family head, I think it would be best for you to take the boy over to the Smith family. The elders joined in to try to convince the leader to take Gray over. Go outside while we discuss this. You'll be summoned when we're done. The leader sent them away. He truly didn't want to hand Gray over to the Smith family, so he wanted to tell the elders about his reasons. If they still decided to hand him over to them, then he would accept it. After having a chat with Gray, Gray and the girls left the hall, stepping outside. When the guards saw them, they were a little tense. After all, They didn't spend a long time inside, so there was probably the possibility of them being chased out. They exchanged gazes while simultaneously swallowing down a gulp of saliva. All he had to do was say yes. What's the use of having a meeting with the elders? Gray thought inside as he walked out. The trio sat down on the bench not too far from the hall, while awaiting the head of the Earl family to summon them. After around 10 minutes, the head of the Earl family came out from the hall, accompanied by the elders. He surprisingly had a look of disappointment. It was as if the outcome of the meeting wasn't what he wanted. "Zeke Hoover, come with me," he called out. Gray walked forward to meet him, and they went to the side of the hall, away from the ears of the others. "To be honest, I don't want to hand you over to them. Think about it. The Smith family would most likely want to kill you. Do you still want to go?" the head of the Earl family asked. "I'm grateful for your concern, sir, but do not fret, they will not dare to kill me, so you have nothing to worry about," Gray replied confidently. It seemed like the head of the Earl family was worried about the same thing as Aldreda, that the Smith family would kill him the moment he was handed over to them. Since you say so, I'll do as you've said," the head of the Earl family replied. The duo came back to where the Earl family elders were gathered. Just as they were about to leave, Gray suddenly felt something vibrate in his storage ring. He sent his spiritual sense inside, and noticed it was the communication device Gerald gave to him. He must have known I'm in the city, he thought. He didn't take out the device, but he was able to assess the message there. "Why have you come to Frost City again?" Gerald's voice resounded in Gray's head, and for some reason, Gray felt like he seemed to be in pain when he said the word again. "I came to see someone. I'll be leaving soon," Gray replied. As soon as he replied, he suddenly felt the device vibrate again. It was like Gerald had been waiting for his reply again. "Why are you handing yourself to the Smith family then? You know they obviously want you dead." Gerald was currently caught between tears. He thought he had been able to chase the little demon out. Who knew he would come again? He didn't only come. He even wanted to hand himself to the Smith family, who obviously wants him dead. "Yeah, but they're troubling the Earl family. I can't sit by and watch them suffer because of my deeds," Gray replied. "You could have told me. I'll settle it. In fact, I'll summon the head of the Smith family now. They would stop causing troubles for the Earl family," Gerald said hurriedly. "No need. I have a plan to take them down," Gray said. Chapter 375. At the Lens Manor. 10 minutes after Gray entered the Earl Manor, Gerald was casually sitting in his office, enjoying tea while playing a game of chess with Dillick. After Gray left, things had gone back to the same for Gerald. He would occasionally have business meetings, but nothing really too serious to worry about. The few weeks Gray stayed with him really stressed him out. The fear of Chris made things difficult for him. So when Gray finally left, he was beside himself with joy. He was about to make a move on the game when someone suddenly knocked on the door. "Strange, I don't recall having any meetings today," Gerald muttered to himself, but still gave Dillick the nod to go see who it was. Dillick went to their door, and after speaking with the guard, he came back to take his seat. "Master Gerald, Gray's back in Frost City," he reported what he was told to him. "What do you mean Gray's back in Frost City? He was supposed to go to the Magical Beasts Forest," Gerald said, not too worried. Even though Gray was back in Frost City, it was only because he knew him well. That was why his people were able to notice him. It's not like the Smith family would be able to find him. He decided to let people monitor his movements, while he continued playing the game of chess with Dillick. A few minutes later, the communication device he had with him vibrated, and when he heard the message, he almost fainted. "What? I'm dead, the boy wants me dead." Gerald was flustered. The message stated that Gray wanted to hand himself over to the Smith family. Gerald had a good few people in each family, so he was always caught up with whatever was going on. Although he never intervened unless he had something to gain from it. He hastily sent a message to Gray, hoping he would reply immediately. When he heard Gray's reply, he almost went crazy. Dillick was calming him down, while he replied to Gray, trying to persuade him not to go. After almost 10 minutes of persuasion which seemed futile, he hastily sent Dillick after them. Gray and the head of the Earl family were already in a carriage, headed to the Smith Manor. No matter what, nothing must happen to him, he ordered with a flustered look. He drank what was left of the tea on his cup, trying to use it to calm himself. They shouldn't be able to kill him immediately. Knowing the fool, he would want to torture him first. That would be even worse. What if Chris finds out? Gerald's fear of Chris was stopping him from thinking rationally, but knowing there was nothing to be done, he poured himself another tea, trying to use it to calm his mind once again. The cup didn't seem to be doing a good job, so he threw it away and started drinking directly from the jug. This for some reason seemed to have an effect on him, as he visibly calmed down. Aish, since knowing this kid, my peaceful life has been ruined. I really shouldn't have called him over that day, he sighed with a melancholic look. Frost City. The head of the Earl family was the only one who followed Gray, as they headed to the Smith Manor. They didn't speak on the way, with Gray looking at the city as they moved on. Although he stayed in Frost City for over a month the last time he visited, he had only been to a few places, so he was taking his time to commit the route to memory, so that after escaping, he wouldn't wander around. It took them around 20 minutes or so to get to the Smith Manor from the Earl Manor. It wasn't close by, but it couldn't really be said to be far either. The carriage got to the manor gate, and they were stopped by the guards. "What's your business here?" one of the guards asked the coachman. "The Earl family head wishes to see the head of the Smith family. He has important business with him," the coachman replied calmly. "No carriages are allowed into the manor. If your Earl family head wants to come in, then he'd have to walk inside," one of the guards said with disgust evident in his eyes. He didn't put the Earl family in his eyes, even though he was only a guard at the gate. The Smith family's pride ran deep through his veins. Such blatant disregard. This Smith family really is something, Gray scoffed when he heard this. The coachman was about to protest when the head of the Earl family's voice came from inside. "Since Master Jean has given this order, it's not wise to go against it." The head of the Earl family highlighted the carriage, accompanied by Gray who had his robe on, and they entered the manor. He didn't want to make a ruckus at the gate of the Smith Manor, especially given what has been going on lately. With his hand behind his back, he gently walked forward with Gray behind him. A guard led them inside after they passed through the gate. The Smith Manor was almost double the size of the Earl Manor. Even the Rice and Lenz Manor didn't match up to it in size. This showed the proud and dominant attitude of the Smith family. Gray even guessed that they were the ones with the biggest manor in the entire Frost City. Even other than the palace, he wasn't sure he had seen any manor as big as this one. These guys must be rich. Sigh, if only Void were here, then he'd be stealing everything while I was held captive, he thought to himself. Because of his arrays, he currently has a need for huge numbers of essence stones. And what's the best way for someone who's as poor as him getting them? Stealing, of course. Chapter 376. Gray soon started calculating how he would be able to steal the essence stones in the manor. It wasn't like he had any good relationships with the Smith family. If he could take from the Rice family without feeling bothered, then he could obviously steal the entire reserve of the Smith family, if he could without batting an eye. They soon got to the hall in the main building, and even though the Earl family wasn't much in the presence of the Smith family, they weren't really a pushover either. If push comes to shove, then they will be able to deal some damage to the Smith family before they are eliminated. The guard went in to announce the arrival of the head of the Earl family to the people of the Smith family, who were inside the hall. He soon came out, inviting Gray and the head of the Earl family inside. Gray walked behind the head of the Earl family. The sight that welcomed him in the hall were extravagant decorations. Statues of dragons, griffins, and other mythical magical beasts were placed in different places in the hall. Looking forward, he saw what looked like an almost 4 meters high throne. Gray almost had the feeling of standing in front of a king because of the throne. Seated on the throne was a man with a slim build. He had short brown hair, and his eyes were in a slit. It was almost like he didn't open them. He was Gene Smith, the current head of the Smith family. Gene wasn't the only one in the hall. There were 3 people in the hall as well, all ladies. EWL of the ladies looked to be in their early 30s, and a younger one who looked to be around 18. "Francis, what brings you here?" Gene asked while still in his seat. He didn't even bother to offer him a seat. Usually, whenever the heads of the big families visit each other, the host would stand up to welcome them, before inviting them to take a seat. Although the Earl family can't be regarded as one of the big families, they were at the top of the hierarchy below the big families. Gene's attitude was a blatant show of disregard to the Earl family. Francis looked at Gene. With a sigh, he went straight to the point. "You've been asking for Zeke Hoover. Well, Here he is. I hope this will make amends for the error of my children. Jean looked at the youth covered by a robe who was standing behind Francis. Remove the robe, he said to Gray. Gray had already looked at everyone in the hall, and to his surprise, Gene Smith was only in the early stages of the Overlord plane. If what he sensed was right, that was around the same stage as Francis. Most people in the Origin planes will not be able to properly sense the stages of those in the Overlord plane. Even with Gray's high spiritual sense, he could only get a rough estimation. He recalled hearing the Smith family was wealthy. Their wealth was what propelled them to the peak of the hierarchy in Frost City. Gray was sure the heads of the other big families were in the late stages of the Overlord plane. Yet, Gene was still in the early stages. Although he knew he was no match for him in a battle, even if he used the fusion state, he didn't have a problem with escaping from him. He slowly removed the robe covering his face, showing the few people in the hall what he looked like. To think William lost to you. The young lady in the hall was the first to comment. She looked at Gray with eyes that clearly showed surprise. She had heard of his handsomeness from the people who went to the ceremony, but she didn't think he would actually be this handsome. Unfortunately, he was an enemy who would be killed soon. Gray looked at the young lady. She was surprisingly in the same stage as William, the 7th stage of the Origin plane, and she was younger. This showed that her talent surpassed him. He didn't really put up much of a fight. He replied to the girl's comment in a calm manner. HMPH. Gene snorted coldly when he heard Gray's remark. Gray's casual and calm attitude left him suspicious. For someone who would most likely die given what he did, he seemed too calm. Do you know why you're here? He asked. Yes. I heard you're searching for me. Well, here I am. Gray shrugged with a casual expression. He didn't really show much of an emotion. I commend your guts for actually coming. But get this straight, you're not leaving here alive, Gene said. There was no use in hiding his intentions from Gray. He had always mostly been a straightforward person. Well, on some occasions. Heh, I doubt that. Gray scoffed. Why are you so confident? Gene was curious about Gray's cool-headedness, so he wanted to quell his curiosity. Cause the Emperor wants me, Gray replied calmly. Huh. Surprise was written on the faces of all the people here. Even Francis looked at Gray in shock. So that's his reason for being so confident. If it's true, then it will be impossible for Gene to kill him. Francis heaved a sigh of relief after hearing Gray's words. The Emperor? Gene asked. He wanted to be sure. Gray nodded. But I don't think I heard anything of the Emperor searching for anyone called Seek Hoover. Gene spoke after a while. Lately, there's been a rumor circulating amongst the higher-ups in the Killen Empire. The Emperor was reportedly searching for a young man. You don't really believe that's my name, right? Gray asked while walking to take a seat on one of the empty seats in the hall. He was tired of standing. Gene looked at Gray. He couldn't make a move on someone whom the Emperor was searching for. Although he couldn't confirm it yet, he didn't dare to act rashly. Since the Emperor was involved, he wanted to doubt Gray. But the fact that Gray knew about this either meant he was right, or he was like them, from one of the big families in the Empire. They could oppress the Earl family because they were weak, and since the Rice family was going through a rough time, they could still cause them troubles. But they didn't dare to start a war with them. If Gray's family turned out to be one of those ones that had been formed even before the Killen Empire was created, then they would be in trouble. Father, don't be tricked by him. Why is he here if he clearly knows the Emperor is searching for him? The young lady spoke up when she saw the hesitation in her father's eyes. Gene looked at his daughter, then at Gray. He kept quiet for a few seconds before switching his gaze to Francis. Since you've brought him over, I'll forgive you. You can leave now. Francis took a glance at Gray. After getting a nod from him, he turned around, leaving the hall. After finding out about Gray's connection to the Emperor, he felt a little bit less worried about him. In the hall, Gray was left with Gene and the 3 ladies. Answer my daughter's question, Gene said. He looked at Gray. According to what he heard, Gray had something the Emperor wanted, but he's asking Gray to confirm if he was truly the one. I have something he wants, Gray said to Gene. Gene nodded. According to what he had found out from other sources, the young man the Emperor was searching for had something he wanted. There wasn't much information about the young man though, so although most of the big families knew about this, they didn't know what Gray looked like. A conflicted look appeared on Gene's face. This was not how he planned it to go after finding Gray. He initially wanted to get people to beat him up, then he would destroy his essence beads just like he did to his children, and then he would throw him into the dungeon while torturing him. But a single word from Gray changed all that. Now, he was not concerned about his children's revenge anymore, but he was curious about what Gray had that the Emperor wanted. It's normal any would want to find out why an Emperor would be searching for a youngster. What does he want from you? After keeping quiet for a few minutes, Jean couldn't hold himself back anymore. If what the Emperor wants was something great, then he would think of his next course of action. He would either hand Gray over or kill him and obtain whatever it is. I don't think it would be wise to tell you, Gray replied. HMPH, even if the Emperor wants you, I could just kill you here. If he comes, I'll tell him I had no idea you were the one he was searching for. Jean snorted coldly. Chapter 377. And you believe that? Gray sneered, not bothered with Jean's threat. Although Gray didn't know much about the Emperor, he was sure the Emperor would most likely execute Jean and the entire Smith family if he found out about this. The Emperor wants him for the Great Earth Essence liquid. If Jean killed him, it would be equivalent to saying he had obtained the liquids from Gray. This would in turn mean he wanted to usurp power from the Emperor after using the liquid, turning him into the threat. Jean naturally didn't believe what he said. He was only trying to bait Gray into telling him about it. Others Gray's age would have been scared if their lives were threatened, but the fact that Gray agreed to come here in the first place showed that he wasn't simple. In fact, this made Jean all the more suspicious of Gray's motive of coming. He could almost sense an ill foreboding. Fine, you can keep the secret with you. Given the amount of effort the Emperor has put into searching for you, I believe he would reward the Smith family handsomely for capturing you, he said after giving it some thought. Greed had been the downfall of many great individuals, so it was best not knowing why the Emperor was searching for Gray. There was a high chance he might covet the thing if he were to know its worth. This is a simple case of the saying, better safe than sorry. Gray nodded, not too bothered with them. Swoosh. He suddenly placed his feet on the ground, using the force he generated to push the seat back, casually evading the wind blade that was sent towards him, while still seated on the chair. Boom. The wind blade struck the ground, sending out wind current in all directions. The breeze blew Gray's hair, making his short hair dance in the wind. Raising his head, he saw the fiery gaze of the young lady who was sitting close to Jean. She's most likely a prodigy of their family. Well, it's none of my business, he thought with his gaze turning cold. I'll take this as a mistake and let this go. If you attack me again, then don't blame me for reciprocating, Gray said coldly. He had always been one to attack whoever attacked him. Since the Smith family was going to go through a tough ordeal soon, he decided to let her go for it. Well, that's all on the premise that she didn't attack him again. If she did, then she might just join her siblings who are trying to heal their essence beads. HMPH. Don't think because my father didn't agree to kill you doesn't mean we can't teach you a lesson. You ruined the life of my brother and sister. If we let you go, isn't that the same as saying the Smith family are afraid of you? The young lady asked. Well, technically, you should be, Gray replied with an amused smile, not even putting Jean in his eyes. It was almost like Gray was the one who caught them, not the other way around. You, the young lady stood up from her seat, anger written over her face. She turned to her father. Father, let me teach this scoundrel what it means to offend our family. Jean gave her a nod. He also wanted Gray to be beaten. Since he could beat William, it meant that he was at least in the 7th stage of the origin plane. What he found strange though was that even with his cultivation stage at the overlord plane, he couldn't see through Gray's stage. He had tried using his spiritual sense multiple times, but whenever it got close to Gray, it was like there was something that was taking the power into boundless space. No matter what, he could get his spiritual sense close to Gray. If Gray were to hide in this hole, there was no way he would be able to find him. Thinking about this, he sucked in a cold breath. I need to contact the Emperor as soon as possible. After getting feedback from him, I'll send the boy over to them. No, I'll tell him to send people to come and pick him up. That way, even if he escapes on the way, I wouldn't be blamed. Jean immediately started thinking of ways to send Gray away. The sooner the better. He recalled that the Emperor sent people here to summon Donald Rice. He was hoping to see if they were still in the city, so they could take Gray. For some reason, he didn't like the fact that Gray was with them. After all was said and done, he had great confidence in his daughter. Hence he allowed her to fight with Gray. She had been able to go toe-to-toe with an expert in the 9th stage of the origin plane, when she just broke through to the 7th stage. No matter how strong Gray was, there's no way he would be able to easily beat someone in the 9th stage. So even if he was stronger than his daughter, it wouldn't be by much. This was the reason he allowed her to fight. The young lady stepped down from where they were sitting, heading towards Gray while releasing a malevolent aura. "Even if I'm not allowed to kill you, I'll beat you to a pulp," she said confidently. "You're that confident?" Gray raised a brow. To be honest, he felt the young lady was okay in strength. But if she thought she had a chance against him, then she was dreaming. Even Reynolds's elemental warrior would be able to easily beat her up, much less Gray. If Alice and Klaus were in the 6th stage, they wouldn't have a problem with facing her given their strength and foundation. This young lady might be strong to others, but when compared to Gray and his crew, she was lacking by a lot. The only thing he found strange was how she was able to advance this quickly. One has to remember that William was already in his 20s, so it was understandable that he was able to reach the 7th stage. There's no way she would have advanced this much unless the trial land. Chapter 378. Did you also partake in the special training? Gray couldn't help but ask. He felt compelled to ask, at least he wouldn't find it too amazing if she entered the trial land. After all, there were tons of things in the trial land that could make one advance very quickly. Gray and his friends could be said to be lucky, especially Gray given what they obtained. But there were a few people who were also extremely lucky. For example, Jonas. According to what Gray heard, Jonas got to the 5th stage of the origin plane when he came out of the trial land. It was said that he wasn't far from the 6th stage at the time of leaving the trial land. Given the months that have passed, there's a high chance that he had gotten to the 6th stage, or even the 7th stage by now. Jonas inherited an expert's legacy, making him advance by leaps and bounds. But that was not the only legacy that was up for grabs in the trial land. After the first black door opened, others opened as well, and Gray didn't know what those ones held. There would obviously be people who would have been lucky to get into that door, and who knows, maybe any of the doors had better legacies than the one Jonas inherited. The young lady was taken aback by Gray's question, but she quickly understood it, but refrained from answering. Gray already knew his answer from her body language, and couldn't help but heave a sigh. "And here I thought thinking you advanced normally." If Klaus, Alice, and Reynolds were to hear this, they would most likely beat him up, especially Reynolds. How could you say something like that when you're advancing even more freakishly than them? When they came out of the trial land, Gray was only a single stage ahead of Klaus and Alice. But now, Gray had gone from the 4th stage of the origin plane to the 8th stage in a matter of 3 to 4 months. And he had the guts to say something like this. Reynolds had only managed to reach the 5th stage, and the last time Gray met with Alice, she just broke through to the 4th stage. Klaus would most likely be in the 4th or 5th stage. Currently, Gray has moved 3 stages ahead of all of them, and was even 4 stages ahead of Alice. Thinking back to how they were all in the arcane plane while he hadn't even started cultivating, it was almost impossible to believe. If one didn't witness it, one would have a hard time believing it. Swoosh! The young lady struck out a palm, sending out a wind tornado towards Gray. Bang! The tornado crashed into an earth wall, halting in its tracks. After a few seconds, it died down. Gray soon appeared in full view after the earth wall sank back into the ground. He was still sitting so comfortably in the chair that it was almost hard to believe he was the one who was attacked by someone a few moments ago. He yawned as if bored. "If that's all you have, then I suggest you go take a seat. Sitting here is more entertaining than battling with you." The young lady's expression changed a couple of times within a second, but one expression which was very clear to see was the rage that was burning inside her. She was visibly shaking after hearing Gray's mocking words. "I'll kill you," she said with dense killing intent spreading all over the hall. Jean watched on, accompanied by the 2 middle-aged ladies. They didn't do anything to stop her. They would have been able to stop her before the battle started. But now that Gray had somewhat trampled on her pride, they knew stopping her might hurt her instead. The first exchange had already shown that Gray was extraordinary, but the young lady hadn't used her full strength yet, so it was unknown if Gray was stronger than her by a huge margin or not. Swoosh, whoosh. Multiple wind blades shot towards Gray from different angles, while a gust of wind moved towards him from above him. The young lady was trying to make sure Gray wouldn't be able to dodge her attacks. But did Gray need to dodge her attack? The answer was a simple no. Although not dodging the attacks would make him expend some energy, he didn't mind. He wanted to completely shatter the pride of this pompous-looking arrogant genius. Still seated on the chair, Gray sneered before waving his hand around him. An earth sphere surrounded him, blocking all the attacks simultaneously. The earth sphere wasn't completely brown like the previous one, rather, there was a light silvery color in it. This indicated the stronger version of Earth. The earth element is regarded as the best defense element for nothing. Just like how the water element makes use of its ice attributes to make terrifying attacks and defenses, the earth element could allow the earth elementalist to produce walls and armors made from jadeite or even diamond. Gray's adeptness in the earth element has seen an increase over the years, and with the increase of his cultivation level, the toughness of the earth he could use increased. Of course, he hadn't really gotten to the stage where he could use jade or diamond, but he was getting to that stage. Bam, boom. All the chairs that were around where Gray was sitting were sent flying after the wind attacks hit the sphere Gray created. After the attack died down, Gray once again removed the earth sphere, still sitting casually on the chair. He was even looking at his nails as if he wasn't doing anything. Staying with Klaus for so long had started to rub off him. He could annoy people if he really wanted to, although he didn't do it as frequently as Klaus usually does. In fact, he rarely did, unless he wanted to break down his opponent mentally. Sighed, just go back, maybe after a few more years, you can fight with my cat, he said with a sigh. His gestures and actions enraged the young lady, but what infuriated her more was when Gray said maybe in a few years, she might be able to fight with his cat. Chapter 379. Your cat, you're dead. The young lady shrieked, clearly more enraged. Actually, saying this is like an insult to my cat. He'll probably kill you with a single attack, Gray said after thinking for a while. I'm not even confident in beating him, he added, but his voice was so low that other than him, no one else heard it. Although he had never tried to fight with Void, the few times they sparred, he was well beaten. Not just that, but Void didn't hold back. Although he was the one who told him not to hold back, he at least expected him to hold back a little. But who would have thought Void listened to him and fought at full throttle? There were times he almost wanted to hold a grudge against the small cat, but unfortunately he couldn't. Who could hate such a wonderful cat? Guess you'll not make it to the Emperor, the young lady said icily before attacking him once again. Just like the previous times, all he did was to wave his hand, and all the attacks were effortlessly deflected. The young lady didn't stop at a single attack this time. Instead, she continued attacking, again and again and again. But to her dismay, all her attacks were literally waved off by Gray. All he did was to wave his hand, and the attacks were disrupted. It was almost like he wasn't even putting any effort. Jean and the two ladies looked at Gray with shock. They knew how strong the young lady was, yet she has been unable to make Gray even move an inch from the chair he was sitting on. You coward! Fight like a man if you have the guts. Stop hiding inside your shell like the tortoise you are, the young lady yelled angrily. She couldn't take it anymore. Her pride was being trampled by the unmoving Gray. Heh, fine, if you can block 3 attacks, then I'll take it as my loss and apologize to you, Gray sneered. He had already calculated everything he wanted to do. He'll infuse a bit of darkness energy into the young lady's essence bead when he attacks. When he was fighting with that young man back at the Chimera Forest, even though he had broken through to the Overlord plane, he only sensed it when it was too late. But unlike the one for the young man, he wouldn't put much into this attacks against the young lady. Just a little that would be able to slowly corrode her essence bead while she's unaware. Before she would take note of it, at least more than half of her essence bead would have been corroded, leaving it unrepairable. 3 attacks. Fine, but what if you lose? The young lady tried to calm herself. She was currently fuming, but she knew if Gray didn't attack, there was no way he would stand up from that place. She felt that as long as Gray stood up, then she would definitely be able to attack him, given the speed she possessed as a wind elementalist. Gray looked at her calmly before replying, I'll apologize. That should suffice, right? You'll be flogged, the young lady said. She didn't want Gray to go unpunished, so after she beat him up, she would get her family guards to flog him for his evil deeds. Haha. Then what if you lose? Gray asked. Then I'll forget about you doing any harm to my siblings, the young lady said. Are you really sure you're siblings? You know, I don't think a real sister would do this, Gray mused. His question managed to enrage the young lady, who was already trying to calm down once again. Don't let his words get to you. He's trying to infuriate you. Jean's voice suddenly echoed in the room. Gray threw him a nonchalant look. He didn't really care if the young lady was calm or incensed. I know, father, the young lady replied before taking a deep breath to rationalize her breathing. Come, she yelled. Gray tapped his left leg on the ground, and to Jean's and the two ladies' surprise, the young lady was sent flying by an earth pillar that sprouted out of the ground from where she was standing. Bam, bang, she slammed into the ground hard, before sliding almost 15 meters. Her body came to a halt after she hit the wall of the hall. All it took was a single action from Gray, and the young lady was already on the ground. She struggled to stand up, looking at Gray, who was still sitting leisurely on the chair. He even hung his right leg on the hand of the chair, while swinging his left leg in the air. What? How? She couldn't believe what happened. From the attack, everyone in the hall knew Gray was being lenient with her. Had he made earth spikes come out instead of the pillar, then the young lady would have been impaled by the attack, causing a fatal injury, if not even death. That's the first attack. I must say you're doing very well. ESKTSK. And here I was thinking I would expend a little bit of effort to defeat you. Gray shook his head in disappointment. Hearing his words and seeing the disappointed look on his face sent the young lady crazy once again. I'm a 1 in a million genius, the greatest genius in the history of Frost City. Yet, I can't even touch a hair on this guy's body. She started questioning life when she thought about it. After returning from the trial land, it had been smooth sailing all the way. Because of how high her stage was when she came out, a lot of people respected her. Some even lauded her to be someone who would go above the Overlord plane, reaching the legendary Sage plane. But now, her heart was shaken by Gray's appearance. Do I still need to attack again? Or do you want to continue teaching me a lesson? Gray asked when he saw the dazed young lady. I refuse to accept this, the young lady said. Oh really? I don't think you have a choice here. You'll accept it whether you like it or not. Gray chuckled. Jean shook his head before saying, enough, you are no match for him. The young lady, who was about to pounce on Gray, stopped and looked at her father. You don't have to worry, father. He relied on sneak attacks. If not, I wouldn't have been hit. You cannot beat him. I don't think there's anyone in the origin plane who can, Jean said with a serious look. He could already tell from the start that Gray was stronger than his daughter, but he didn't expect the difference to be this huge. One had to know that his daughter could hold her own against a 9th stage origin plane elementalists. But in front of Gray, she didn't amount to much. Jean could tell that Gray wasn't in the Overlord plane. Well, more like didn't dare to think that he was. How scary would it be for an 18-year-old boy to be in the Overlord plane that they all struggled for over 100 years to reach? The thought frightened him, and he wasn't even thinking about it. You should listen to your father, he does have a point, Gray advised. The young lady ground her teeth hard, before turning around to leave the hall. She couldn't bear to see Gray's arrogant face. All she wanted to do whenever she was looking at it was to pummel his handsome face, until he was unrecognizable. Luckily for her, she didn't encounter Klaus. Given how foul-mouthed he was, she might probably not be able to take this defeat the way she did. There's a chance that she might even want to fight a life-and-death battle with him. Gray smiled when he saw her leaving. He had already completed what he wanted. That was why he didn't bother to let her continue. His darkness element essence had already been placed in the young lady, and he could tell that it had traveled to her essence bead. In a couple of days, it would be able to corrode at least half of her essence bead. Jean looked at Gray with a conflicted expression. He was almost wishing he didn't bring him into his house. Had he known that because of the Emperor he wouldn't be able to harm him even when he was in his house, he would have just let the matter go. Besides, he still had other talented children. Those two were unlucky, hence they met a freak like Gray. Jean called on the guards outside to escort Gray to a secured room in the manor, while telling them to make sure no one went in or out of the room. After they took Gray away, he called on an elder in the Overlord plane, telling him to hurry to the capital to report Gray's capture to the Emperor. He didn't dare to tell him to take Gray along, because he had heard of Gray staying in the Lens Manor the previous time. While the guards were taking Gray to his room, he was making a rough map of the manor in his head while looking around. He planned to steal as much essence stones as he possibly could. After all, it's not every time he would steal from Alice's father. After getting to his room, since there was nothing to do, he took out his communication device, trying to contact Alice and Reynolds. Chapter 380. Gray spoke with Alice and Reynolds for a while before soon getting tired. With nothing left to do, he recalled the books he borrowed from the Lunar Academy when leaving, the books about forge mastering. Since leaving the academy, he hadn't really had any time to go through them. I'll need to think of a way to prepare a storage ring for the others. There's also that multi-elemental sword. I need to find a way to reduce its consumption, or even better, make a new one entirely from scratch. The thought of the sword kind of excited him since it was something he hadn't seen before. He had not even seen a sword that could use 2 elements, much less one that has the ability to use all elements. It was like a cheat or something. Time soon flew by, and day turned into night. Gray spent all his time reading the books about forge mastering, further deepening his shallow understanding of the topic. Sadly, there was no way for him to practice, or else he would have improved even further. He had already come to the decision that since he couldn't practice for now, he would increase his theoretical knowledge about it. Then when he could, he would start using it. It should take around 2 to 3 days for the people from Capital to come, so I should be able to find the vault within this period of time, he thought. He took out an empty piece of paper from his storage ring, placed it on the ground, while also taking out ink and a quill pen. He slowly started to draw out the rough map he made of the Smith family manor in his head. After almost 20 minutes, he drew out almost the entire front view of the manor, as well as the places he walked through while being carried to his room. With the map in hand, he sent out his spiritual senses to check the people who were watching the door. They were still doing their job dutifully, even though it was already night. Surprisingly, they were not the only ones Gray found. He sensed almost 5 more people hiding in different locations. All were at the peak of the origin plane. This guy sure is cautious, he chuckled. Gray blinked twice and disappeared from where he was standing. The room was soon left empty. Outside the room, Gray appeared behind the room, hiding in the tall flowers close to the room. None of the people guarding the room noticed his departure. It wasn't like they could sense him anyway. And due to Gray being an earth elementalist, the room he was placed in was actually made entirely of wood. This way, there would be no way for him to be able to use the earth element to create an opening in the room. After appearing behind the flowers, Gray did a rough estimate of where the people were hiding, before blinking from one place to another within seconds. He appeared within the line of sight of one of the men, but he didn't stay for even up to a second, so it was impossible for the man to see him. When Gray blinked past, the man looked at the spot Gray appeared before disappearing within a second. He was almost sure he saw someone there, but due to how fast, he thought maybe it was an illusion, or his eyes were playing tricks on him, since he has been looking at the same place for hours now. And just like that, Gray evaded all of them without anyone realizing what was going on. He soon appeared in the main building. Almost all the manors he had seen had the same building system. They were divided into 3 buildings. The main building, left and right wing. If his guess is correct, which it probably is, then Jean would be staying in the main building. Not just that, but the vault would also be in the main building as well. There's a chance the essence stones were not kept in the vault. Take Alice's father for example. He kept all his essence stones in his bedroom, with most of them being mid or high grade. Gray was sure there might be some essence stones in the vault, but it would probably only be low-grade essence stones. After sneaking into the main building, Gray started moving around the halls, searching his room with his spiritual sense. He would instantly retract it once he knew who was inside, trying his best not to attract any attention, while also using the space element to perfectly shield his aura from the people in the building. There were guards patrolling the halls, but they weren't that many, so Gray didn't have any problems with dodging them. After 30 minutes, he finally found Jean's room. Now the issue was getting inside the room. Although it was already late, Jean was very much awake. In fact, He was quite busy in his room. He wasn't the only one there, rather, he was accompanied by one of the middle-aged ladies from before. When Gray sent his spiritual sense inside, he quickly withdrew it, before moving as far away from the room as possible. I'll have to look for his office then. He changed his direction, deciding it was best he searched for his office. Who knows? There might be a secret room in the office that might just be the vault. 1 hour later, Gray looked around the office intensely, but unfortunately, he couldn't sense if there was a secret room in the office or not. He couldn't start touching everywhere, since it would alert Gene of someone entering his office. He could only leave in disappointment. Times like this made him miss Void even more. Given Void's size and specialty in the space element, coupled with his superior sensory abilities, he would have already found the place by now. Gray wouldn't even need to take the risk of coming out in the first place. He would have stayed in the room, studying his books, while Void did all the dirty work. This is the end of this video. Thank you guys for listening. Hope you enjoyed and wish you wonderful rest of the day. The Silent Rupt is out.